Chapter 1. It was the year 1840 of the Shi Huang calendar, the second year after the end of the Tianyuan War. The strong enemy was gone, and the world was at peace. The long-lost peace had returned, and the people lived and worked in peace. In Mingzhou City, in the northern part of the Han Empire, the night was dark and silent. After a day of hustle and bustle, the city that was shrouded in the endless night had calmed down. Most of the people who worked hard for the day had already fallen asleep. However, there were still some special jobs that were working hard to fill their stomachs, maintain their livelihood, and realize their dreams. There were many other reasons. For example, thieves. There were also the envoys of justice who caught the thieves. The imperial court had passed a resolution to deepen the communication with the four barbarians. New things from foreign countries had flooded into the central region. The thoughts, culture, and customs of foreigners had impacted the ancient country. The most obvious point was the construction of tall buildings. Next to the jade buildings with carved beams and painted rafters and flying eaves, stone houses with high roofs and protruding eaves were erected. Although they were angular and not smooth enough, they looked stylish enough and had the advantage of being fresh. In addition, the thieves also liked the increasing number of Western-style buildings. Because they were tall and complicated enough, there were sometimes some iron boards and wooden railings nailed to the walls, hung chandeliers, and installed small balconies that were extremely convenient for climbing. All of these were very convenient for these ancient technical jobs. It was said that there were also some old colleagues of the Western barbarians. They wore white clothes and used thorns in their sleeves. They were called the assassins and were good at climbing and jumping around these buildings as if there was no one there. The female thief, Qinyu, was a coquettish bitch. At this time, her vigorous figure was flying between the buildings on the high ground. The reason why she chose to be a thief was that she pursued an exciting life. The world seemed to be burning with oil, but under the stable status quo, there were surging undercurrents. All the darkness was hidden under the prosperity and glory. This darkness was born from the evil thoughts and desires of human beings. As long as there was darkness, there would be people who did dirty work. Qinyu was undoubtedly one of them. Tonight, after successfully robbing another rich family's house, she was sure that her career would welcome a new challenge and excitement. Her sexy and powerful body, like a cheetah, drew a stunning arc in the air, and the woman landed firmly on the ground. Because at the intersection in front of her, a man in white turned out and stood at the end of the street. This action of blocking her clearly showed that he did not come with good intentions. Wearing white clothes in the middle of the night and showing off, he was either an idiot or a powerful, pretentious prick. There was probably no third possibility. Qinyu pressed his hand on the handle of the dagger at his waist, narrowed his eyes, and began to observe his opponent. The other party had obviously come prepared and was waiting for an exhausted enemy. If they blindly ran away or avoided, they might fall into a trap set up in advance. In other words, a dispute of force was inevitable. He was alone and did not wear a uniform or carry a standard weapon, so he was not a member of the Six Fan School. He did not carry any pretentious items, such as a fan, did not dress up like a prince, and did not speak righteously. Therefore, he was not a hot-blooded Jianghu fledgling who came out to gain experience. Since he was not one of the above two people, why would he stop her in the middle of the night? Then, he could only be a bastard paladin who worked for money. Qinyu cursed in her heart. The constables of the government had the discipline of the government, and the young heroes of the Jianghu had the dignity of a warrior. Only these nosy paladins did things without any taboos. Her eyes vigilantly scanned the paladin, trying to judge his martial arts, fighting style, and how difficult it was to deal with him from the minute details. First, she looked at the paladin's hands. Very good. His fingers were slender like jade, and his joints were not prominent. It seemed that he was not good at using concealed weapons. He waited here instead of attacking halfway, which meant that his lightness skill was not very good. Therefore, she was relieved. For Cat Thief, it was good news that the other party was not good at using concealed weapons and lightness skill. Then she saw a thick, long, and hard rod-like thing slide out from the other party's sleeve. Damn it, she thought. Bifong Model 3 shotgun, a heavy firearm smuggled from the Lihua Kingdom, the raging flame divine power nation. It was called shotgun by the people in the industry. With one shot, dozens of bullets would fly all over the sky, faintly covering a piece of land. It was no less than a rain of concealed weapons. If one was too slow to dodge, one would have to eat a few fried steel beans. If one was hit directly, one would immediately become a hornet's nest. It was really something more vicious than the Tang sect's concealed weapons. Damn the Lihua Kingdom. Martial arts were not popular, but they actually used these strange and evil tricks. But how could it be said? The strong martial artists of the empire had sufficient reason to despise these strange and evil tricks. Even if it was a tyrannical and vicious cannon and bullets flying all over the sky, for them, it was just a mosquito bite that they could casually block with a swing of their sword. But Qin Yu was not one of these people. Otherwise, she would not only be a cat burglar. So, when she saw the ranger take out this black and hard gun, she knew that today's matter could only be solved with wisdom. Just when she was thinking about how to break out of this situation, the ranger in front of her suddenly sighed. Alas, why is it another woman? Miss, I advise you to immediately surrender. You have the right to remain silent. But every word you say, the voice was very young, even a little immature. Was a young, inexperienced child. But the other party's complaint made her eyes light up. It seemed that she had met a very interesting boy. She made up her mind and smiled charmingly. Swaying her waist, she leisurely walked a few steps closer. With a soft and charming voice, she chuckled and said, "What? Little brother, are you the kind of man who never hits a woman?" "Actually, I'm not. When I tidy up a woman, even I'm afraid of myself." Although he said so, the young ranger couldn't help but take a few steps back. His voice also had a hint of urgency. "Listen, miss, you've committed a crime. I advise you to not resist and obediently surrender. If you surrender directly, it will be good for both of us." "I'm serious. Don't say that I didn't warn you." Sure enough, she had long heard that there were some young boys who had just started their careers and carried righteous ideals and childish beliefs. When they walked onto the job, they would have thoughts of making things difficult for some big sisters who were in the enemy's position. These cute boys were very interesting, extremely interesting. They were like pieces of tender and delicious meat. Just a little teasing, and they would blush and make very, very cute reactions. It seemed that she had hit the jackpot. She didn't know what type of little fresh meat this was. Was it the pure type who knew nothing about the matters between men and women? Was it the cute type who looked like a girl? Was it the arrogant type who was obviously interested in women's bodies but pretended to be serious? Qin Yu's heart suddenly gave birth to a lot of thoughts that she shouldn't have. She took a few steps forward and pretended to be pitiful. "Little brother, do you have to arrest me? I'm very pitiful. If I'm sent to the government, I'll definitely be treated like this. Do you have the heart to do that? Let me go, okay? Just let me go. At most. She blinked her big misty eyes and quickly glanced at the other party. She lowered her head and shyly said, "At most, I'll teach you to do some very interesting things." As she spoke, she took a few more steps forward. Her slim figure swayed gently, and the tight-fitting night suit outlined her soul-stirring curves. As a burglar, she had a good figure that she was proud of. The little fresh meat on the opposite side unexpectedly took a step back. His voice became a little more urgent. "Stop. I'm warning you for the last time. Stop your actions otherwise." Humph. He was really a virgin. Was he scared? "Little brother, do you have the heart to shoot me? At such a close distance, I'll be directly smashed into pieces." Qin Yu laughed proudly in her heart. She saw the other party's words as a sign of weakness. The female cat burglar smiled and said, "Don't be anxious, little brother. Don't you want to know what interesting things I'll do with you?" Taking advantage of the moment when the other party was distracted, Qin Yu's secretly tightened muscles quickly burst out a powerful force. The bright light of the knife flashed under the moonlight, and the flying claws whistled through the air. Without giving the other party time to speak or react, Qin Yu unsheathed the knife in her right hand and threw out the flying claws with her left hand. She jumped up and rushed towards the target who had already entered the attack range. What I've taught you is a very, very valuable life experience. Never, ever underestimate and belittle a woman. Qin Yu's eyes had become extremely cold. Her left hand tightened, and the flying claws that she threw out had already tied up the gun. She pulled back the mechanism and took the fatal gun away from the enemy's hand. At the same time, she had already rushed forward. The knife was like water, and the sharp edge of the knife was getting closer and closer to the target. She could already see the other party's face. The other party didn't stagger back, didn't make any defensive moves, and didn't even look frightened. Only a low sigh surrounded her ears. It was full of vicissitudes and disappointment. What was he sighing about? Was it another failure of the mission? Was it the sorrow of always falling into the hands of women? What a pitiful little brother. But at the next moment, her figure flashed. She found that the other party didn't dodge or avoid, but went straight to her. He raised his right arm and clumsily tried to grab her. Clumsy movements. Could it be that he's a clumsy idiot, using his bare hands to block the knife? Qin Yu's movements didn't stop. She slightly lowered her right shoulder, and the handle of the knife slid along the other party's arm from bottom to top. She was going to hit the other party's heart. She suddenly had goosebumps, and her whole body seemed to have been swept by a warm electric current. The female cat burglar widened her eyes in shock. She realized that the man's slender middle finger was pointing straight at her right forearm. Through the tight-fitting night suit, the man's finger moved up her skin and gently drew a line across her skin. She didn't know why, but an indescribable and unreasonable pleasure instantly filled her mind. It was as if the finger contained a powerful magic that pushed her into an ocean of happiness. As the finger slid, she felt as if thousands of gentle big hands were touching her body at the same time. From the inside out, it was unusually sweet and even made her lose her strength. Wait, what the hell is going on? Qin Yu opened her mouth and involuntarily let out a scream. She suddenly lost all her strength, and her well-practiced assassination movements quickly became full of flaws. She was as clumsy as an apprentice's. Before she could react to what had happened, the ranger opposite her retracted his finger and deftly avoided her attack. Then, he stretched out his left palm and gently patted the female cat burglar's back. Ugh. It was just a light pat, and the strength was like a breeze. However, the terrifying pleasure surged like a tide. That palm seemed to contain endless heat, and it instantly warmed her heart and illuminated her soul. In an instant, she felt as if she was lying in the arms of her true love, listening to him whispering sweet nothings in her ear. Roses bloomed around her, and the fragrance filled her nose. She was filled with happiness and joy. WWW, what the hell is going on? What happened? What happened? Qin Yu felt that all the bones in her body had become soft, and her whole body was filled with tenderness and a sense of weakness. She staggered a few steps and wanted to stand up straight, reorganize her posture, and immediately escape from this troublesome place. However, it was all too late. The ranger took a few steps forward, lifted his right foot, and gently kicked her leg with the tip of his foot. She let out a suppressed moan, and with a plop, she fell heavily to the ground. She clamped her legs together, and she felt very ashamed that some liquid was flowing out quickly along with her moral integrity. That gentle kick had only touched her leg, but it seemed to have opened up all the pores in her body, and all the beautiful things were poured into her body. The huge pleasure wave after wave hit her brain, making her dizzy. Her face flushed red, as if she had experienced an earth-shattering foreplay. In other words, she actually was in heat? What the hell is going on? There was an incomprehensible panic in Qin Yu's eyes. She twisted her body and wanted to stand up, but her whole body was still enjoying the aftertaste of pleasure. The feedback to her brain was all, "I'm very good, don't bother me." What the hell is going on? I tried my best to check my body's condition. I wasn't under the influence of drugs, nor was I under the control of evil spells. The only one who caused all this was the ranger. But all he did was touch my arms, back, and legs, and he was able to cause me to become like this? How is this possible? That's why I said, you'd better surrender yourself. It's good for both of us." It took only a few seconds for the ranger to put her down in a way that was difficult to understand and explain in words. He squatted down and sighed. "Before arresting you, I have to emphasize one thing. I just touched your arms, shoulders, and back. I avoided all the private parts of a woman, so this is not sexual harassment. You're not allowed to go to the Women's Rights Protection Association or any other shitty places to complain about me. Just touching these insignificant parts can make me. Chin Yu fell to the ground, and her eyes were full of mist. She let out a moan that made people's blood boil. She whispered, "What kind of skill is this? You? Who the hell are you?" "I'm a ranger who likes to do things, and I've just changed my profession recently." What responded to her was a cold snort. Facing the weak and boneless beauty, he was unmoved. "I caught you red-handed. Prepare to be punished by the law." After finishing his work, the ranger stood up, looked at the empty moonlight, and sighed. "My name is Sun Lang, and I've recently changed my profession and become a ranger. As you can see, in the past 2 years, due to some very complicated reasons, I've become very bad at dealing with women. Also, I hate it very much. This is true. Please believe me." Chapter 2. In a person's life, there would always be moments that made you feel helpless. For example, when you went to the bathroom and realized that you didn't bring any toilet paper, or when you opened the package of instant noodles and realized that you didn't have any bread, or when a female enemy that you had just defeated winked at you and wanted to do something beyond friendship. No one could imagine how many gigabytes of porn videos this woman had imagined in her mind in just a few minutes. She gently exhaled and turned to look at Sun Lang, her eyes almost dripping with tears. "Little brother, can I get to know you? Big sister wants to." "I refuse, miss," Sun Lang replied bluntly. "Please have some self-respect. I won't ask you out." "Big sister, you're serious." It wasn't that they hadn't failed before. Their organization had a deep understanding of how to fish people out. Even if they were caught, it wouldn't be a big problem. Chin Yu dared to swear to God that she really wanted to get to know this little brother and have a relationship beyond friendship in the future. She definitely didn't have any intention of revenge, so she hurriedly said, "I don't have any bad intentions. I understand. You just covet my pure body, right?" Sun Lang squatted down, looked at the woman in front of him, and sighed. "Annie, as someone who has been through this, I'll teach you some life principles. You have to be elegant. Don't be dirty. There's still a lot of fun in life. Don't focus all your attention on this boring romantic relationship. If you can't control your desires, you're no different from a beast." As he said this, his eyes revealed some vicissitudes of life. "Let me tell you, I used to be like you, young and full of impulsive hormones, craving big boobs, wanting to start a harem, being intimate with many beautiful girls, turning them into my wings, shamelessly until the end of time. But dreams are dreams, and the reason why they're beautiful is because they're infinitely far away from you. One day, when your dream suddenly comes true, you'll find that it doesn't seem to be to your liking. Instead, it'll become a nightmare that haunts you. So," as he spoke, he suddenly felt a soft sensation on his leg. He looked down and found that the woman's body, she slowly moved her body. The corner of Sun Lang's eyes twitched. He didn't listen to her at all. He controlled his temper and repeated, "Miss, you should have some self-respect. You may feel good now, but you'll regret it for the rest of your life. You should find an honest man who dug up your ancestors' graves in your previous life. Find a man who really loves you and entrust your life to him, instead of being coquettish here. I'm already past the age where I want to take in all of you. I hope you can be more mature. You're an adult, so you should keep yours. Don't rush up to a handsome man just because you see one." Chin Yu coquettishly said, "Little brother." Sun Lang couldn't stand it anymore. He suddenly stood up, raised his leg, and stepped on the female cat burglar's butt, pushing her out. Sun Ran said, "Shut up, you lowly sow. Here it comes again." The moment the hard heel touched the soft butt, a mixture of shame and anger immediately surged up. The hardness of the heel, the strength of the other party, and the merciless reprimand made Chin Yu let out a long moan. She shouted in a distressed tone, Why? I'm obviously being insulted and treated so rudely, but I actually feel so comfortable. Shit, the corner of Sun Lang's eyes twitched again. Damn, I can't control myself. Has it really become an instinct? He sighed and looked around. Then, he bent down and picked up Chin Yu's flying claws. He removed the claws and pulled the thin chain made of beast tendons and iron wires. You forced me. Just as Chin Yu was about to speak, a long, thick, and hard rod-like object suddenly blocked her mouth, causing her to let out a whimper. Sun Lang expressionlessly stuffed the woman's short scabbard horizontally into her mouth, forcing her teeth to bite the scabbard involuntarily. Then his hands swiftly twisted and tied the thin chain to the two ends of the scabbard. He pulled it back, and the scabbard tightly blocked Chin Yu's mouth. His hands moved nimbly like a butterfly, first tying a slip knot on her neck so that she wouldn't suffocate. Then he wove it all the way down while muttering something. Chin Yu wanted to struggle at first, but when she heard him murmuring, she listened attentively for a moment. She only heard him whisper, Hold your breath, concentrate, control your hands, don't make it a asterisk asterisk, don't make it a asterisk asterisk. In the end, I still made it a asterisk asterisk. After a moment, Sun Lang let out a sad sigh, as if he had accepted his fate. My hands are messing around. What came into view was the rope art that could be called a masterpiece. It was like a swimming dragon that wrapped around the woman's body. The thin chain was slightly inserted into the flesh. It was tight, but not rough, and it didn't have the roughness of violence. Instead, it had a slightly erotic feeling and beauty. It emphasized and highlighted the most charming part of a woman's soft and beautiful body. The complicated and ingenious technique was enough to make the famous knitters and skilled women who were good at needlework walk away with their hands covering their faces. The premise was that people could appreciate it with an artistic eye. Otherwise, they would definitely report it to the authorities. They might not even be able to see such an obscene thing in their lifetime. Chin Yu struggled for a while, but she suddenly realized that although this ingenious rope art restricted her ability to move, it didn't cause her any pain or oppression. Instead, it made her feel a strange sense of excitement. That wonderful feeling flowed through her body, so the female cat burglar's eyes revealed a very subtle emotion. Although she couldn't speak, she could express her thoughts through her eyes. That pair of seductive eyes obviously conveyed an obvious meaning. Little brother, so you have his kind of taste. What a great skill, damn retard. Sun Lang couldn't help but raise his hand and measure the back of Chin Yu's neck. This was the most fragile part of the human body. As long as he cut it with a knife. Forget it. He couldn't control his strength well now. If he used a little less strength, she might directly fly into the sky. If he used a little more strength, she might also fly into the sky. Out of sight, out of mind, he took off his cloak and covered Chin Yu's body with it. The beautiful and seductive woman instantly turned into a female corpse waiting to be cremated. The paladin, who was relieved, began to think about how to hand over this super troublesome guy to the law enforcement. At this moment, a righteous and awe-inspiring shout suddenly sounded under the moonlight. Pervert! Stop! Now, let's review the current scene. Under the cold moon and chilly wind, in the middle of the night, there was no one around. The weak girl was tightly tied up into a ball, and the sanctimonious thief took off his outer shirt with a perverted smile. It was a classic picture of picking up flowers in the middle of the night. Sun Lang sighed again. Then, he heard the sound of chaotic footsteps from the other side of the street. After a while, a female arrestor with bright eyes and white teeth, who was wearing an official uniform, unsheathed her long knife. Her long eyebrows were raised, and she came with a large group of policemen. Moreover, this woman's breasts are so big. Chapter 3. Zhang Yinluo was the arrestor of Mingzhou City who had just returned from studying martial arts at her sect. What was worse was that the sect where she studied martial arts was called Vulture Spirit Palace, a place that the men of Shenzhou used to yearn for, but now hated. Thousands of years later, This godforsaken place would probably be crowned as the birthplace of the feminist movement, the cradle of the idea of equality between men and women, and so on. It would become a famous tourist attraction. However, right now, they were the class enemies of countless men in Shinjo and the biggest obstacle that prevented them from embracing a better future. Logically speaking, in a feudal dynasty like the Empire, which lacked humanism, had worrying problems with human rights, and had low social integrity overall, a force that could supervise and suppress the bad behaviors of stinky men to some extent was still very valuable. Take Chinyu, for example. Although there was a female prison in the yamen, according to the social customs of hundreds of years ago, if such a good-looking female prisoner fell into the hands of the yamen, she would either be raped by the hungry civil servants or be secretly bribed by the victims' rich families to be used as a sex slave. She would be wantonly humiliated and abused without dignity. She would die without a sound. However, in a country where martial arts flourished and even individual strength could change the structure of a city or a state, these terrible things were curbed and mitigated to some extent. Take the Han Empire, where Mingzhou City was located, as an example. As the most powerful country in Shinjo for a long time, this was the country where women had the highest social status. It was because the Han Empire was founded on martial arts, and martial arts was a heaven-sent treasure for mortals to strengthen their bodies and even change their destinies. If men could practice it, so could women. Men were masculine and vigorous, and they walked on the path of hard and fierce martial arts. Women were feminine and delicate, and they could conquer hardness with softness. Therefore, there were also great grandmasters among women who were respected by the world. In the beginning, those women who were not inferior to men became great grandmasters and established their own sections. They not only sheltered the suffering women, but also worked hard to change the weak status of women at that time. Their efforts gradually changed the cruel status quo, and their charm and achievements became the most dazzling stars, attracting the hearts of all women in the world and longing for the power to change their destinies. After hundreds of years of hard work, the social status of women in the empire had been greatly improved. There were female scholars, female businessmen, female officials, and even female officials in the imperial court. Especially in the Tianyuan War that lasted more than 10 years and almost involved the entire Shinjo in the war, which officially ended 2 years ago, there were also women who were conferred the title of Marquis because of their military achievements. They were famous and distinguished. To this day, although the power of women was still unable to change the world dominated by men, they could at least do something. For example, Qin was convicted of theft and handed over to the imperial court for trial. The female officials of various departments in Mingzhou City, the paladins and merchants among the people, the noble ladies, and even the high and mighty female sex, as well as the talented men who loved to please famous prostitutes and the young heroes who loved to please chivalrous women, would definitely pay attention to this female criminal suspect, so that she would not be treated with any despicable desires except for the trial and punishment she deserved. But it's useless. Her accomplices will find a way to get her out in a couple of days. You've only encouraged her arrogance. What did you say? Sun Lang's retort was so soft that Zhang Yinluo did not hear it. This female constable who had graduated from the Vulture Palace, a feminist stronghold, was indeed a disciple of a famous family. She was deeply influenced by feminism and was extremely proficient in her job. Although she had already confirmed the other party's identity as a paladin, she still opened her mouth to accuse him. Your Excellency, she may be suspected of theft, but she is still protected by the law. If you use improper means and humiliate women in the process of apprehending her, you will also be punished by the imperial court. Not only that, but when the time comes, I'm afraid that the world won't spare you. That was another drawback of the feminist movement. The number of men in the world was constant, and the number of women in the world was constant. When women demanded a higher social status, it would naturally arouse the disgust and resistance of men. Some female friends would slowly become extreme in the face of cruel reality, and thus affect more people. The Vulture Spirit Palace was naturally inclined towards the radical faction, which was why they spoke with thorns in their words. Logically speaking, if you want the safety and dignity of women to be protected, so that maidservants would not be casually thrown into wells after being f***ed by their masters, and that female prisoners would not be casually thrown into wells after being f***ed by their masters, these demands are the way of the good, and there is no problem at all. The general public opinion of the society is on the same page. However, if you want to ban brothels and abolish the concubine system, fine. I admit that the latter is the most basic demand of women for love, and it will become the norm thousands of years later. But if you propose such things in this evil, feudal society, you are obviously trying to make the wheels of history fly, and you're going to be the teeth of the evil, feudal forces. Therefore, some radical demands were resolutely and completely resisted, which made the frustrated female friends become even more radical. This became a vicious cycle, which then evolved into the famous argument that there are no good men. In the long run, some women gradually became the oddities of the feminist radical faction, and Zhang Yinluo in front of him was clearly the budding oddities of the feminist radical faction. Misfortunes never come singly. These female heroes who gradually developed the impulse of cynicism happened to be at the border of the empire, deepening the communication with the barbarians. Various ideas and beliefs of the foreigners flowed in, and in addition to the ideas of democracy and freedom, feminist ideas naturally followed. Good heavens, these ideas flashing with the brilliance of humanism were simply a ray of light that could split heaven and earth for those confused and primitive feminist heroines of the Han Empire. The heroines who were armed with feminist ideas were like dry firewood meeting a raging fire, unable to be stopped once it was started. Every time they opened their mouths, they would first accuse you of being disrespectful to women. However, Sun Lang did not care about this. In fact, he really did not want to have too much to do with any woman at the moment. If it were not for this female detective pair of perfectly round breasts that made him stop to take a look at them, and the fact that the arrival of these guys made it convenient for him to complete the task, he would not have stayed here for a second longer. Humph! What a surprise. She even wrapped her breasts? Considering her shoulder width, walking posture, and the position of her center of gravity, the size of her breasts should be TSK, amazing. It's actually more beastly than a foreign horse. Constable Zhang did not know that her most shameful and biggest secret as a woman had been seen through by the ranger in front of her. At this time, a female constable who was in charge of checking on Xin Yu's condition first looked at Sun Lang with a very subtle expression, then walked to her side and whispered something in Zhang Yinluo's ear. Thus, the female detective looked at Sun Lang with a cold gaze. What did you do to her? Sun Lang looked into the distance and said, I just made her lose the ability to resist. Naturally, Zhang Yinluo would not be satisfied with such a boring, perfunctory answer. She went straight to the point and said sternly, You drugged her? I knew it. Sun Lang sighed and spread out his hands. What drug? The girl's face turned slightly red, and her tone was a little shaky. It's the kind of shameless drug that can make women become very strange. I didn't. Sun Lang's expression was calm, and his eyes were righteous and unwavering. Since the girl's breasts had been seen through, he did not want to be entangled any longer. His voice slowly turned cold. According to the agreement between the Rangers Guild and the government, and our own code of conduct, I don't need to explain in detail the methods and means I used to carry out the mission. You have no right to question me. If you have any objections to this matter, it should be the Yamen of the 6th Fan School to come forward and negotiate with my guild directly. My lord, you should now confirm the identity of the suspect and announce to me that the mission has been completed. Issue a transfer certificate, and I'll go back to get the money. Zhang Yinluo was very dissatisfied with this bureaucratic tone. She had basically determined that the detective in front of her had used shameless methods in carrying out the mission. The girl said angrily, Even if she is a suspect, she should be protected by the law. If you have sexually harassed her or done something worse, I have the right to hold you responsible. Then you should interrogate her and conduct a thorough examination of her body. Sun Lang rolled his eyes. Do you need me to teach you what to do? Check if there are bruises and soft tissue contusions on her body. Check if there are any violent friction wounds on her body. Check if there are any unknown secretions in her body. And if necessary, check her breathing and smell if there is the smell of heather in her breath. You. The girl's face turned red. You're shameless. From your angry rebuke, I understood one thing. Sun Lang said faintly. You actually understood everything. Zhang Yinluo was about to draw her knife, but the subordinates around her already knew her temper. They all rushed to stop the girl and drag her to the side. Someone gave a look, and a constable who seemed to be in a higher position came forward and began to discuss the details with Sun Lang and handed over the token. Everything went smoothly. After receiving the token, Sun Lang heard the bearded constable in front of him whisper, Brother, can you tell me how you did it? I've been in this line for more than 10 years, and it's easy for me to tell the truth. She was not affected by drugs, nor was she controlled by the soul transference spell. She didn't look like she had been. How did you do it? Sun Lang weighed the token in his hand and sighed softly. This is a long story. Forget it, goodbye. He looked dispirited, as if he had remembered something unbearable. After nodding to the constable in front of him, he turned and left. The lonely figure was silent in the wind. Only the big bearded brother was left behind, with an expression of, I really want to be apprenticed to a master and learn from him, as he watched him leave. My name is Sun Lang, and I've recently changed my profession to be a ranger. As you can see, in the past 2 years, due to some very complicated reasons, I've become very bad at dealing with women. Also, I hate H very much. This is true. Please believe me. And I don't seem to have untied the tortoise shell on that woman. I'm not bragging, but in this world, there are definitely no more than 5 people who can untie my tortoise shell. It doesn't seem to be something worth bragging about. Forget it. Let them cut it open with a saw. Chapter 4. Early in the morning, the sun had just risen. In a small courtyard in the west of Mingzhou City, Sun Lang closed his eyes and stretched himself. He said loudly, Who will wake up first in the dream? Only I know. I have enough spring sleep in the cottage, but the sun is late outside the window. Then he opened his eyes and looked out of the window. Well, there were no ordinary people coming to appreciate him copying poems. Sun Lang put on his clothes and got out of bed. After washing up, he faced the rising sun and stretched lazily. He held his breath and listened quietly. The sound of cooking, the sound of husband and wife talking, the sound of a husband leaving the house, the sound of a mother beating a child. All sorts of sound could be heard in an ordinary household. For an ordinary person, such sounds and such things would happen every day. It might even be like this for their entire lives. It was ordinary and ordinary, but in Sun Lang's ears, it was so delightful. This is what the world should be like. Sun Lang laughed at himself in a low voice. It took me almost 8 years to live such a life. F*CK, it's so nice to be ordinary. Before he traveled to this world, he had read some novels. When he saw the protagonists who yearned for an ordinary life, rejected the abnormal situations around them, and shouted, Long live peace, he usually sneered at them and thought that they were just too pretentious. But after traveling to this world, he had experienced all kinds of things, experienced the magnificent things that ordinary people could never imagine, and was involved in a huge whirlpool that was beyond his control. Only then did he truly understand the value of a peaceful life. No matter what, at this stage of his life, his goal was to be a quiet and handsome man, live well, have fun, and have a good look at this interesting world that he had never had the chance to see before. He recalled the bitterness and the sweetness for a while. Then he walked lazily into the wing room on the right. When he opened the door, a gust of golden and iron air hit him in the face. Practice room, whatever you want to call it. This kind of room and place was almost standard in the homes of the empire's nobles and officials, as well as the commoners. Even the poor would have to set up a few practice scarecrows in the courtyard. The Han dynasty was famous for its martial arts. Martial arts were the most popular in the Divine Land. Almost everyone in the country knew how to use fists, legs, spears, and clubs. Even the peasant women who did the laundry, cooked, and took care of the crops every day might be able to speak clearly and logically when it came to using their arms and fists. Training rooms were the most important part of family. For the ordinary people of the empire, practicing martial arts could not only strengthen their bodies, but also change their destiny. Every 3 years, there would be a national talent selection ceremony, which was called the military selection ceremony. As long as one was from a good family, regardless of their family background, they could enter the capital for the military selection ceremony and fight for the opportunity to change their destiny. Thousands of soldiers and horses would cross the bridge, and from various martial arts skills and military strategies, there would be many rounds of selection and elimination. In the end, 300 people would be selected. These 300 lucky people would not only enter the bureaucratic system of the empire, but they would also be personally bestowed by the emperor with the name Imperial Army during the palace examination. They would gain incredible power, and from then on, they would be above the ordinary warriors and embark on a path of glory. For the ordinary people who came from poor families, this was an attractive bargaining chip that they were willing to pay everything for. Although the courtyard Sun Lang lived in was not big, the training room still took up a considerable amount of space. He stepped in, and there was a clear cracking sound under his feet. It was the sound of his boots stepping on something fine. Even if it was an ordinary family, they would clean the training room until it was spotless. However, this room was extremely dirty and messy. For some reason, the ground was covered with a large number of sharp metal fragments. If a hero came here to practice the rolling hall saber technique, within 10 moves, he would have pierced himself into a hedgehog. There was a pile of weapons piled up in the corner of the training room. Almost all of them were swords. Every single one of them shone with a piercingly cold light and flowed with brilliance. In the eyes of ordinary people, they were rare treasures. If they had one at home, they would have to wipe it several times a day. It was even more attentive than when they served their ancestors. But here, they were casually piled up together. This reckless waste of natural resources was enough to make all the people in the world who love swords stomp their feet and curse. Sun Lang casually pulled out a sword, took 2 steps back, and stood in the middle of the training room. He stretched, jumped a few times, and casually waved a few sword flowers. The swordsmanship in the world was either nimble and swift, complicated and changeable, or used strength to win. There were as many sword moves as there were grains of sand in the Ganges. However, whether it was a peerless sword technique that was wonderful to the peak or a woodcutter's rough swordsmanship, if the sword moves were broken down to the most basic movements, then you would find that the principles between them were actually interlinked. Stab, one of the most basic movements in swordsmanship. The sharp tip of the sword silently came out. It was so fast that it was like an illusion. In the blink of an eye, Sun Lang stretched out his arm, and the sword pierced out. The tip of the sword did not tremble, and the body of the sword was straight, as if it was an extension of his arm, solidified into a sculpture. This stab was ordinary, but if there was a martial arts expert present, he would be horrified because this stab did not make any sound. It should be known that all actions in the world were obstructed by air. More or less, there would inevitably be sounds of breaking through the air. When swords and sabers attacked, of course, there would also be the sound of the wind, causing changes in the airflow. The faster the momentum, the heavier the force, the louder and faster the sound of the wind. But the sword just now was obviously fast to the extreme, but it did not make any sound. This extremely contrary to common sense phenomenon could only mean one thing. The sword just now had already cut through the air, so that sound and airflow could not follow. And with exquisite strength, it suppressed all the possible noises that could be made. Just with this ordinary sword just now, it was enough to give Sun Lang a well-known name in the empire that was founded on martial arts, and become an honored guest of the nobles and officials. But Sun Lang silently sighed, as if he was not satisfied with his swordsmanship. He stared at the body of the long sword that reflected the cold light like a moon arc, shook his head, slowly withdrew the sword, and then, stabbed again. Halfway through the sword, there was suddenly a sharp explosion. This good sword that had been tempered thousands of times and forged in molten fire exploded with a bang. The sturdy body of the sword that could chop a boulder dozens of times without breaking instantly exploded into hundreds of iron fragments that shot out in all directions, becoming a complete waste on the ground. But Sun Lang's expression did not change, or it could be said that he had long been accustomed to this. One sword, this kind of rare quality sword, can only support me for one sword strike. After one sword strike, the sword bones will be destroyed by the unbridled, surging sword chi and become even more brittle than tofu dregs. He casually threw the sword hilt and laughed at himself. Fortunately, it's still much better than 2 years ago when everything I touched would explode. I can finally reign in this uncontrollable power a little. 2 years. He had not used a sword to fight against an enemy for 2 years. The days when he used to leave the dust behind with one sword strike, 10 battles with 10 victories, were gradually being sealed in the depths of his memory and would eventually disappear in time, just like how much blood and tears would eventually merge into the earth. 2 years ago, he had abandoned his own sword. That sword was enough to make all the warriors in the world go crazy, but it was also the cause of all his nightmares and pain for 6 years. However, he had finally obtained the freedom he wanted, but the price for this freedom was too damn heavy. It was so heavy that it made a righteous and pure young man unable to communicate with women. Even when he claimed that he hated sex, no one would believe him. The memories only lasted for a short moment, and Sun Lang came back to his senses. He cursed, F*CKU, I'm going to go against you. But do you think I want to use a sword? I have a gun. You bunch of idiots who are superstitious about cold weapons. Sooner or later you'll be smashed to pieces by the positron siege cannon and the two-directional foil. He left the room full of debris and returned to the main room. He stuffed the Baifeng Mark III explosive gun that was leaning against the wall into his sleeve and then fastened a row of ammunition to the buckle on his waist belt. He casually pulled open a drawer and took out a few iron cylinders that were obviously not good things. He casually hung them in the inner pocket of his robe and muttered, "Humph, Ghost Weep is not as fun as CF." After finishing his preparations, he closed the door, stepped out of the small courtyard, locked the door, and went out. Chapter 5. There were 2 reasons why Sun Lang became a paladin. Firstly, he was tempted by an old friend. Secondly, it was out of interest. Paladins liked to meddle in other people's business. They were controlled by the Paladin Guild and were responsible for public security among the people. They were supervised or relied heavily on by the government to do things that were inconvenient for civil servants. He had just changed his job not long ago. Last night, he caught a female cat burglar who seemed to be very famous. Naturally, he was going to collect the money. Another disadvantage of this martial culture was that the ability of cat burglars was much higher. Even cat burglars had their own sections. Some highly skilled cat burglars came and went like ghosts. There were also many unorthodox ways that were passed down from generation to generation. When they stole, they were often successful. This made the landlords complain incessantly. Naturally, the rewards for such famous thieves were also very high. Usually, such a high reward would not be taken by a newcomer like Sun Lang. But speaking of which, the people that paladins did not want to touch the most were these habitual thieves. As mentioned earlier, these thieves were actually organized. For example, Chinyu last night was very capable and famous. She was the backbone of her own organization. Even if she failed, the organization would arrange for someone to get her out. As for the methods, there were really many. According to common sense, if a famous cat burglar fell into the hands of a paladin and was sent to prison, after they were released, they would definitely seek revenge. However, there is no need to worry that the thief organization would retaliate against a paladin. After all, paladins also had the support of the local club. Everyone was out to make a living, so no one would break some of the tacit rules. But even if they were not retaliated against openly, they were not afraid of thieves stealing, but they were afraid of thieves remembering. It was really not a good thing to be remembered by a group of thieves all the time. If it was a female cat burglar, it would be even worse. As long as the other party was a little hooligan and bit you in the interrogation, saying that you took the opportunity to take advantage of her, then you could just wait to be annoyed to death by various feminists. However, for Sun Lang, the so-called retaliation and remembering were not a problem at all. Or rather, he was really looking forward to it. Don't be fooled by this guy's calm appearance now. In fact, his heart was always in a state of unbearable hunger and thirst. He said that he yearned for an ordinary life, but everything was particular about a certain amount of tension and relaxation. The pace of life that was too dull was not very good. It was good to have some occasional adjustments. So if there were some warm-hearted friends who could help him improve the quality of his life, that would be King great. This kind of mentality was just too normal. When everyone here was reading a book, they would always complain about how boring Prideful Dragon was. This enemy was really King retarded. However, if they had really transmigrated, then who cares if Prideful Dragon was Prideful Dragon or not? The bigger the cheat, the better. They could not wait to change their cheat to the world modulation mode. You guys must not have read that book, right? Therefore, Sun Lang boasted that he was a high-end reader before he transmigrated. He was disdainful of all the vulgar acts of face-slapping. However, when he had really transmigrated, his pretentious heart became more and more restless. What was worse was that the moment he transmigrated, he was forced to go to war. In other words, he had been suppressed for 6 whole years. His mentality had undoubtedly developed in the direction of a psychopath. Therefore, it could be said that it was actually very normal for him to yearn for some face-slapping things to happen. As Sun Lang thought about the refreshing scene where everyone would bow their heads and exclaim that he was undefeatable in the future, he walked on the bustling street. There were many shops on both sides of the street. The hawkers were shouting loudly, and the pedestrians were bustling with activity. Everyone was going about their own lives. This was originally the unchanging daily life of the people in the dynasty. However, now, there were already some subtle changes that were quietly happening. He saw that the pedestrians walking on the street were curiously and clumsily trying on the clothes of the Western continent. However, the foreign clothes that exposed the chest and the back, restrained the body, and exposed the arms and legs were unavoidably somewhat shameless in the eyes of good girls. The bold young ladies also did not dare to wear it like this. However, the yellow and silver skirts and the narrow sleeves of the fragrant robes were carefully sewn with beautiful lace by the dexterous hands of the seamstress. The white curtain hats that were worn by the beautiful women with plain red makeup had also been replaced with white muslin and small round hats. In Sun Lang's eyes, this kind of mix and match inevitably gave off a strange feeling of clumsiness. However, the shyness and flirtatiousness of the young ladies who boldly pursued beauty was really worthy of a knowing smile. Next to the bun shop on the street, there was a new shop quietly hanging long bread and red-grilled sausages. The clever shop assistant was shouting loudly, recommending the delicacies from the Western continent. He saw well-dressed merchants walking out of exquisite houses and small buildings. The gazes of the bystanders were filled with disdain and a trace of envy. The design plans of the differential gears were once again dug out from the pile of old papers. Gradually, the number of four-wheeled carriages gradually increased. The carriages were exquisite and had the style of the Western continent. The carriages of the Central Plains were mostly two-wheeled. The basic necessities of the people were clothing, food, shelter, and transportation. When the imperial court issued a decree, the exchange of culture could no longer be stopped. New things flowed in, old things were exported, and the ideas of the Chinese and the Western continent clashed. Some people were looking forward to this, while others were deeply worried. They were either happy or worried, but they could not stop this change from happening. They could only sit in the tea houses and restaurants, puzzled over the imperial court and this baffling decree to open the border. Sun Lang did not care about the decree of the imperial court. He was only curious about the changes on this street, this city, and even this country. He came from another world, and for some reason, he had almost no sense of closeness and belonging to this country. Whether opening the border and communicating with the Western continent would shake the country, or whether it would bring shame to the sages and ancestors, was too vague for him. However, he saw that on this street, steamed buns, noodles, and liebas sausages were placed together. Collared clothes coexisted with Western-style dresses. Carved beams and painted rafters stood side by side with pure white houses, and the attitude of the people of this country to welcome new things with a bit of arrogance. This seemed to be quite good, because he thought of the history of the world where he originally came from. After hundreds of years of dark oppression under the foreign rule, the decaying dynasty was opened by the Western country of tigers and wolves. The once proud and glorious civilization and country were wantonly plundered and abused by bandits. The country was about to be destroyed, and the orthodoxy of the divine land declined. In the face of the painful reality and the humiliating unwillingness, the knowledgeable people suddenly woke up and wanted to save the country. Therefore, after the ancient and glorious civilization of the East experienced the cultural destruction under the foreign rule, they had to face the second terrible impact. People were frightened and timid and passively endured the cultural invasion from the West. Too many cultures, customs, beliefs, and spirits were lost. Because of this, in contrast, the situation of this world was much better than the last dynasty of the Divine Land. The current Han Empire was still recognized as the most powerful country in the Divine Land. In the Tianyuan War that had just ended 2 years ago, it had displayed a terrifying power that shocked the world. It was also because the country was strong and its military power was at its peak that the knowledgeable people were baffled when they suddenly proposed to learn from the West and exchange experiences under such a good situation. However, it was precisely because the country was powerful, dignified, and powerful that when the people saw something new coming from abroad, they didn't look at it with ignorance, inferiority, or even admiration. Instead, they looked at it with pride and arrogance. When the other side came, they would use the advantage. This was really too interesting. Sun Lang could not help but smile. In his previous life, when he read history and books, there were often unwillingness and obsession. The cultural exchange in modern times was the complete defeat of the Eastern civilization, and the Western civilization won a great victory. The radiation of civilization covered the whole world. Before, he had thought more than once about what kind of sparks would be produced when the Eastern civilization and the Western civilization in their heyday collided head-on, and whether the ending would be different. Now, he seemed to be lucky enough to see it. However, although it was so, this world was very subtle, and there were too many differences between it and the original world. As for what exactly was different, Sun Lang came to a breakfast stall. He first bought 2 pieces of round bread from the Western food stall, then bought a piece of roast meat from the Chinese food stall, added a few coins, and asked for 2 pieces of lettuce from a boss. Then he put the roast meat and lettuce on the bread and left under the shocked and thoughtful eyes of the 2 shop owners. He then used the change he found to buy a newspaper from a newspaper boy who was shouting loudly. Smelling the fragrance of the ink, he ate a simple hamburger and flipped through the newspaper. In the past, the empire had something called the Imperial Bulletin, which was a kind of newspaper used to list the state affairs and important political news and send it to various places. However, its audience was basically only bureaucrats, officials, and dignitaries, and the content was only about political affairs. Ordinary people could not understand it, were not interested, and did not have a means. Now that the empire had opened up, under the influence of foreign ideas, businessmen smelled business opportunities and began to learn the ways of capitalism. Therefore, newspapers slowly became popular. Sun Lang casually flipped through and saw the international news section. Recently, the Kingdom of Fire, the divine right state of flames, has tested a new type of fuel air explosive. According to monk Sprivalov Ivan Viktorovich, the commander of the country's strategic rocket army, the new weapon is mainly used to clean up heavy industrial pollution. It is a weapon that brings peace and justice. May the glory of the divine emperor watch you, and may the soul of fire be eternal. Woola. So, there were many subtle changes between this world and the world in his previous life. Speaking of which, I remember that Big Beard Pooh was a senior priest in the Church of Flame. His official position was the Chief of Staff of the Strategic Rocket Army. What's the matter with the senior priest and the senior monk? If the news report is wrong, you'll have to take responsibility. Sun Lang shook his head. Since this newspaper was aimed at the general public, then there was no need for the palace bulletin to be so formal. The words used in the newspaper were all in the vernacular and commonplace. This report was about current political news, so it was a little serious and proper. In some of the other pages, there were even words like, "I think all the ministers in the capital are fools." Even though it was like this, there were still some translations that needed to be a little more careful. Sun Lang finished the ingenious simple breakfast and continued to read this simple yet interesting newspaper. Everything that was happening in this world and everything that would happen in the near future was so interesting and fresh to him. It was enough to make him read it again and again with a smile on his face. There's a murderous aura. Sun Lang stopped and put away the newspaper with interest. He looked around and thought, which blind, no, warm-hearted person wants to enrich my spiritual life? Then, his expression suddenly changed. The Rangers Guild, which was where Sun Lang worked, was right in front of him. The aggressive, feminist type bust-a-female arrester from last night was leading 2 or 3 lackeys with knives. They were looking left and right, as if they were waiting for someone. Judging from her slightly anxious expression, slightly angry eyes, her right hand holding the handle of a knife, her spirit and temperament, and the interaction last night, the person she was waiting for was most likely me. Sun Lang analyzed with the logical thinking ability of Lord D, who was as observant as the fire, meticulous as a bag of charcoal, and quick-witted as Lord D. Then, he saw the woman turn her head and look at him. Sun Lang analyzed with the logical thinking ability of Lord D, who was as observant as the fire, meticulous as a bag of charcoal, and quick-witted as Lord D, and came to 2 conclusions. Damn, she's really here for me. And I've been discovered. Chapter 6. He had been discovered. What should he do? Run? Why should he run? Sun Lang smiled proudly, puffed out his chest, and strode forward. I am a man. I have always been upright. I have never violated the law or done anything bad. Why should I be afraid? All right, this is a stupid way to put it. Let's change the style. I'm a time traveler. I should face difficulties head on. I should step on those who look for trouble, slap those who pretend to be tough, teach those who are arrogant, and teach those who are arrogant. Why should I be afraid? That's the right style. After noticing Sun Lang, Zhang Yinluo strode forward. She did not know that the ranger opposite her had already cultivated her beautiful sentiments as a time traveler. She pointed at him as if she had recalled something. She said in a frantic tone, "Why are you tied up so tightly? We tried to untie you for a long time, but we couldn't untie you. We couldn't even open it with swords and saws. I had to go home to get the Jinghong sword." Sun Lang stared at her as if she was an idiot. "You came here to stop me because of this?" "No," the female detective said loudly. "When I went home to get the sword, the female cat burglar was kidnapped." Sun Lang nodded and said, "I see. Please come in. As we know how useless the constables of 6 Fan School are, we have recently started a service to help you find people. You must be very anxious after losing the suspect. You can't eat or drink, and you don't even have the same interest as before. It's okay. We Rangers will help you. Go in and fill in the form. We will help you put up the missing person notice. All right. Thank you very much." As if. Zhang Yinluo took 2 steps forward. She pointed at Sun Lang and shouted, "We believe that you are a major suspect. Please come with us." Sun Lang put on a silly and naive look. "Why should I kidnap the female cat burglar? I caught her and handed her to you in exchange for a reward. Why should I take the extra step of kidnapping her? Why should I kidnap a female cat burglar? What is my motive? Why would I kidnap her? Of course it's to do some shameless things." Zhang Yinluo blushed and stammered. You wanted to do that last night, using a strange method to turn Qin Yu into a very strange person, and then tying her up in a very shameless manner, and even taking off her clothes. You want to do something shameless, right? In the end, We bumped into you on the spot. You pretended to hand her over, but afterwards, you felt indignant and followed us. After I left, you revealed your ugly side and kidnapped that female thief. You, little comrade, your way of thinking is very problematic. Although you have big breasts and you said that it's the etiquette of a conversation, if you talk nonsense, I'll still sue you for having big breasts but no brains. Sun Lang said earnestly, "It's the misfortune of the country and the sorrow of the people to have someone like you become the arrester of six-fan school. If I wanted to have sex with her, why would I have done it on the street? If I wanted to kidnap her, why would I wait until you left to do it? And let's go back to the most fundamental question. Why do you think I have improper thoughts about that woman? You're completely slandering and accusing me by inverting black and white. It's obviously that woman who was pestering me. How can you accuse me of being innocent?" You. Zhang Yinluo stamped his feet and said, "Qin, you became so strange. You must have done something to her. Is your head stuck between your breasts? Just because I caught that female thief, she became very strange. What did I do to her?" Sun Lang said disdainfully, "According to what you said, you accidentally poked yourself when you played with the Mr. Horn I made at night, and you still want to blame me for ruining your innocence. In the Empire, or in this world, the degree of ideological liberation of women was extraordinarily high. The culture of martial arts also led to the openness of the people, so that people with a little common sense knew what a Mr. Horn was. The so-called Mr. Horn was a woman's friend. It was a prop to shock the soul and comfort the body of lonely young women and ignorant girls who were yearning for love. Lascivious people knew what I was talking about. Zhang Yinluo's fame was not small. Although he did not directly come to the door, he attracted the attention of many paladins. The busybodies leaned against the door and listened to the free crosstalk. When they heard Sun Lang mention Mr. Horn, they all showed a dirty smile that all men understood. They thought that the quality of this newcomer was not bad. She actually took advantage of the lackey of six-fan school in a roundabout way. However, this little girl was young and impulsive. Maybe she was an innocent girl from a big sect. She probably did not understand. However, they were wrong. After Zhang Yinluo heard it, he jumped 3 feet high as if his tail had been stepped on. Shameless. Lecher. Pervert. Pervert. She actually understood. The paladins were amazed. Sun Lang was also shocked. "You didn't really use it, did you?" The girl finally noticed that they were in public, and she also noticed the mocking gazes of several rangers. She immediately felt as if she had been chopped in the head by a knife, and a string in her head snapped. She shouted loudly, and her hands turned into claws, grabbing at Sun Lang. "Surrender." Last night, this little girl understood his dirty jokes. I didn't expect her to be so honest despite her innocent appearance. With the sound of wind in front of him, Sun Lang shrugged and changed his footsteps. He avoided the opponent's attack as if he was taking a stroll in the park. Some of the onlookers who were good at Qin Na, Kung Fu quietly stuck out their tongues after watching for a moment. The female constable's Qin Na Kung Fu was exquisite and changed rapidly. It was obvious that she had mastered it. But even so, she could not catch a piece of the opponent's clothes. The paladins seemed to be very familiar with this set of Qin Na Kung Fu. Every time he dodged, he predicted the opponent's move and dodged with ease. Sun Lang heard the whispers of the extras in the crowd talking about him. His desire to act pretentious was greatly satisfied. He comforted, "Don't be angry, don't be angry. Even if you used Mr. Horn, it's definitely not the ones I made. I was just bored when I was learning my craft, so I casually made a few of them. They're the kind that can move on their own. They're expensive and precious, and they're not for sale. They're just gifts for a few loyal. Ahem. Anyway, you can't afford them, so it can't be so coincidental." As soon as he said this, the little girl's delicate body trembled. Her body, which was about to pounce, froze for a few seconds. She silently withdrew her right hand, then slowly drew out the long knife at her waist. She said to the few constables behind her, "Take it down. This guy is rebelling against the government and making fun of the constables. Take him down on the spot. We can't pretend that we didn't hear that." Seeing that the knife was about to be used, the paladins who were watching the show walked out of Zhongyi Tower without hesitation. They came to Sun Lang's side, crossed their arms, and cast a sidelong glance at Zhang Yinluo. "Little girl, it's one thing to play, but you dare to use a knife in front of us. If it turns into a fight and His Excellency blames us, can you, a little constable, bear the responsibility?" Seeing this, the female constable gritted her teeth. "Are you going to cover for the criminal?" "Criminal? The constables of the 6th Fan School are really impressive. You don't have any evidence, but you're calling an innocent person a criminal." A deep voice rang out from behind them. The paladin smiled and turned around to see a majestic figure striding toward them. This person was the leader of all the paladins in Mingzhou City, the hero who took off his armor in the Tianyuan War. His surname was Hu, and his name was Shoshin. When Zhang Yinluo saw this person, her expression changed. She put away her knife and saluted. "So it's guild leader Hu. I heard that you were born in the army and are very strict with your troops. That's enough, little girl. Don't use these words to mock me." Hu Shoshin pointed at Sun Lang bluntly. "This guy is my nephew. I watch him grow up. I'm very sure about his character. He would never do anything immoral. He said he didn't do it, so he didn't do it. If you continue to pester me, don't blame me for taking you down and asking your superior to take him away. When that happens, you'll be the one embarrassed. Don't regret it." When had Zhang Yinluo ever been scolded so rudely? Hearing that, she was so angry that she laughed. "Guild leader Hu, I know that you are the precious daughter of the Zhang family, and I also know that you are a proud disciple of the spiritual Vulture Palace. Hey, where are you putting your hands? I also know that you have a half-baked Imperial Army sword with you. It's the Jinghong sword, isn't it? You want to show off a piece of junk in front of me?" Hu Shoshin said coldly. "Your family is powerful, and you have the Imperial Army. However, I have reason in this matter. Even if Goddess Wu is here in person, I have something to say. This Goddess Wu is too powerful for me to defeat. However, you also know that I was born in the army, and the war has only been over for 2 years. Not all the old soldiers of the Tianyuan War are dead yet." His eyes turned cold, and the murderous air of a veteran flashed in his eyes. "Little girl, don't make a mistake." Although Zhang Yinluo had big breasts, seeing Hu Shoshin's tough attitude, she knew that today's matter could only be left unsettled. She glared at Sun Lang and said angrily, "Let's go." Seeing the 6th Fan School's civil servant running away with his tail between his legs, the paladins were naturally elated. Their thoughts were extraordinarily clear. After making a racket for a moment, they looked at Hu Shoshin with admiration, who had scared off the other party with just a few words. They shouted, "Great shopkeeper, Hu is mighty. Great shopkeeper Hu. F*CK off. A bunch of idiots who have nothing better to do. Go back to work." Hu Shoshin glanced around, and the rangers immediately scattered like birds. Then, he waved at Sun Lang expressionlessly. "Follow me." Sun Lang did not say much and just nodded. The two of them walked into the loyalty building of the Mingzhou Ranger headquarters and went up the stairs to the 2nd floor, leaving only their backs to the rangers who were watching the scene below. Some people were whispering, "Don't tell me he's the bastard son of Stick Hu. It doesn't look like it. Old Hu is such a rough bastard. How could he give birth to such a delicate child? His lightness skill is not bad. That little girl's grappling hand is not bad. He actually dodged it. He has some skills." Although the voices of these discussions were very low, Sun Lang still heard them. The corner of his eyes twitched. He looked at Hu Shoshin's back in front of him and narrowed his eyes slightly. Hu Shoshin seemed to be unaware of it. He led Sun Lang all the way to the 4th floor and came to the private study of the president. The moment Hu Shoshin pushed open the door, Sun Lang expressionlessly raised his leg and kicked the president's butt. Chapter 7. The kick was fast and urgent, but Hu Shoshin seemed to have foreseen everything. He dodged forward and dodged the kick, shouting, "Where are you kicking?" Sun Lang closed the door expressionlessly. "Nephew, how dare you take advantage of me?" Hu Shoshin pretended to be sad and said, "What a pity. I've fed this kid for 6 years, and he doesn't even call me uncle." Sun Lang seemed to be familiar with this guy's shamelessness. He just sighed and walked to the window. He opened the window and sat by the window, listening to the voices below. What happened just now was not a small matter. With the paladin's boring and gossipy nature, it would be easy for them to figure out what happened last night. He looked down at the confused and lonely city, and his cold eyes showed a sharp light. He said in a low voice, "I heard a lot of voices talking about me. If it goes on like this..." The next moment, his expression became depressed and sad. He sighed and said, "If it goes on like this, I will be on the hunting list of the great sex thieves. You have to think of a way." Hushoshin came to the desk and sat down. In this antique study room with faint incense, a tall man was sitting cross-legged. He had big shoulders and a round waist and a bald head. He looked very valiant, which formed a very strange and sharp contrast with the famous paintings on the walls and the 4 treasures of the study on the desk. The man took out his opium pipe and patiently added tobacco to the pipe. He gently rubbed his index finger and middle finger, and a little flame appeared out of thin air, igniting the precious tobacco leaves. He opened his big mouth and took a big puff. Then he slowly exhaled a string of green smoke with a look of enjoyment and grinned. "Isn't this good? I think you seem to be enjoying it. Enjoy your grandma's leg." Sun Lang glared at him angrily. "Who the hell is enjoying it? A woman is so coquettish that she's about to release a flood and pesters you to have sex with you. Do you think it's very satisfying?" The other party was obviously shocked by Sun Lang's aura that was full of anger and grief. He stammered, What's wrong with that?" Sun Lang looked at the highest person in charge of this province's rangers with a look of disdain. You're just a prodigal who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Be careful that you don't cry for nothing when you get old." Hushoshin was dumbfounded. Then he reacted and said angrily, "You actually have the face to talk about me?" Back then, who was the one who stared at the big-breasted beauties in the Allied camp and drooled, always wanting us to take you to the brothels? When it came down to it, all you did was shrink back. When we asked you, you pretended to be pretentious and said that you would save your first time for your wedding night. If we laughed at you a little, you would draw your sword and cut people down? Sun Lang said proudly. You also said it was in the past. At that time, I was just a child. Because I was young, I was childish and shallow. The Kurumi has already grown up, Hushoshin said expressionlessly. That's right. From an innocent young man who couldn't even speak properly in front of a woman, he grew into a lecher who could send an 80-year-old woman to heaven with a single finger. Sun Lang said angrily, You want to F*** King fight? Hushoshin also slammed the table. Are you F*** King blaming me? You were the one who stirred up the trouble. That female cat burglar was just a small character. There were many ways to deal with her, but you just had to use the most perverted way. Sun Lang sighed and said, Isn't that because I had no choice? That woman suddenly rushed over, and she was full of flaws. Isn't that F*** King embarrassing? I took some time to modify the shotgun 2 days ago. It's much more powerful, and it's a scattershot type. There's no way to control the bullet's trajectory. A casual shot can break her arms and legs. Although she stole something, she shouldn't have to suffer such a sin, right? Shouldn't have to suffer such a sin? Hushoshin said with his eyes wide open. I really want those fellows who were chopped up by you to hear this. Have you been eating vegetarian for the past 2 years? Could it be that you went missing because you were captured by the monks of Sanskrit temple to listen to scriptures for 2 years? That's why the lust that was as turbulent as the sea back then has been completely wiped out? If that's the case, that group of bald thieves did a good thing. But how did you train to be able to make the world's #1 pervert run away with his face covered? He thought for a moment and said in shock, Could it be that while those bald donkeys wiped out your lust, they also forced you to learn the Zen of happiness? F***CK. Their intentions are really vicious. I haven't seen you for 2 years, but your brain is still so fresh and refined. Sun Lang sighed and said, Forget it. I still have to thank you for today. If that girl continues to pester endlessly, it will be very troublesome to deal with her. No, I have to think of a way. Women are super troublesome. I can't hit or touch them. If my hand slips, there will be endless trouble. This is obviously an ability that all men in the world would envy. Hushoshin rolled his eyes. Why are you so pretentious? You won't even eat the meat that's sent to your mouth? That girl just now is very pretty and has a good figure. After a few years, she'll definitely be very charming. You're also at the age to get married. Also, that female cat burglar from last night is quite famous in Mingzhou City. There are many people who want her. Are you going to let her go just like that? Let me tell you, I've been through hundreds of battles and seen a lot. Sun Lang pondered for a moment. What are the characteristics of a good woman? For me, a beautiful heart is much more important than a beautiful appearance. Their hearts aren't that beautiful, and they're ugly. What reason do I have to not let her go? I'm not so thirsty that I can't endure it. What? Hushoshin felt that his ears were playing tricks on him. He recalled Zhang Yinluo's appearance. The girl was bright and beautiful, with a heroic spirit between her eyebrows. The noble aura cultivated by her noble birth, the spiritual aura cultivated by cultivating in the Spirit Vulture Palace, the beautiful charm of a young girl, and the pair of breasts that could add 30 points. No matter how he looked at it, she was a beauty. There was also Qin Yu, who was taken down by Sun Lang. She was famous in Mingzhou City, and several big shots in the underworld were thinking about this delicate and beautiful rose. So ugly? Yes. Although it's superficial to judge a book by its cover. How should I put it? Sun Lang spread out his hands. If a woman with a crooked mouth, slanted eyes, and a foul stench appeared in front of you and said that she fell in love with you at first sight, she was willing to marry you, and she only wanted to have some fun with you. She didn't want to disturb your life in the future, and she only wanted to have something more than friendship with you. What would you do? I will send her flying with a kick, Hushoshin said without hesitation, but he rolled his eyes. But Qin Yu is an outstanding beauty. Beauty? The corners of her eyes are slightly high, and you can tell at a glance that she's not dignified. The outline of her chest is not good, and it's slightly sagging. She probably jumped too hard when she was practicing martial arts. Judging from the way she walks, she also practiced horsemanship. She doesn't know how to take care of herself, so the skin on the inner side of her thighs is not very good. This kind of Jianghu person's skin quality is just so, and Sun Lang counted with his fingers. In a short while, he had reduced the rows that the underworld bosses in Mingzhou City were obsessed with to worthless weeds. After a long speech, he came to a conclusion. You see, her appearance is just so, and her heart is not dignified. A woman who is neither beautiful in appearance nor beautiful in heart wants to have something more than friendship with me. Although I won't despise or insult her, I will never agree to it, right? Let's talk about that female arrester again. Sun Lang raised his head, only to find that Hushoshin had tears in his eyes and a complicated expression on his face. He was startled. What's wrong with you? Nothing. I just suddenly felt like crying. Those two women are pretty good, but why did they become like this when you talked about them? So, what have you experienced in the past 2 years that made your vision so high? Hushoshin's lips trembled. He wiped his face hard and gave Sun Lang a thumbs up. Young man, tell me your story. Sun Lang's expression was absent-minded for a moment as he fell into reminiscence. His expression was leisurely, as if his mind had traveled tens of thousands of miles away, transcended time and space, returned to the past, and recalled the things in the depths of his memory. Then he shuddered hard and shook his head abruptly. I won't tell you. Hushoshin was not disappointed, either. He just shook his head. It had been some time since he reunited with his old comrade. He had asked the questions that he wanted to ask many times, but the guy either played dumb or avoided answering them. The last battle of the Heavens Origin War 2 years ago had almost become the greatest mystery in the entire Divine Land. The few insiders avoided talking about it, and the imperial court was even more secretive about it. The senior generals who knew about it were strictly ordered to swear that they would not reveal the secret. Even the veterans who had made great contributions in the Heavens Origin War could not get any information or clues. His old comrade was also believed to have died in the battle in the Grand Desolate Mountain, leaving only his sword behind. However, many didn't believe that he was dead. His corpse wasn't found on the battlefield either, and some of his old brothers even quit the army and searched everywhere for him. Hu Shouxin ran back to Mingzhou City and became a ranger leader with the same thought in mind. But after 2 years, this thought would gradually fade away. However, a chance encounter happened, and the person that many people missed so much appeared in front of him, just like that. He said slowly, "If you don't want to tell me what happened in the last battle, I won't ask. As long as you're alive, nothing is better than that. But I just feel that it's a pity. Now that the war is over, the dead are honored, and the living are famous, but you have nothing. It's too unfair. After all, we feel that we've wronged you." Sun Lang was silent for a moment. Then he shook his head and smiled. "There's no need for that. The grudge between me and the Imperium was settled 2 years ago. We don't owe each other anything. The court doesn't need to give me a high position, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. Right now, I just want to live a peaceful life and live like a normal person." Hu Shouxin nodded. "Then at least meet them. Many people are looking for you. If they know that you're not dead, they'll be very happy. I still need some time. Let me calm down. Now's not the time." Sun Lang turned his head and looked at the scenery outside the window. The bright sky, the heavy traffic, the ever-smiling people, the bustling city, and the beautiful world. A faint smile appeared on his face. "A little. I'm not used to it." Hu Shouxin nodded slowly. The bright light of the fire licked the smoke, causing a thin layer of smoke to rise. He blew out a smoke ring and suddenly said, "You're not afraid that they'll laugh at you, are you? After disappearing for 2 years, you went from a peerless general with the bravery of 10,000 men to a peerless pervert with the bravery of 10,000 women. Don't give me those weird nicknames." Sun Lang roared. "Also, I guess the guild has already begun to spread rumors about me. You have to find a way to keep it a secret for me. I was fooled by you at that time, so I agreed to come here to be some bullshit ranger. If any other women come to me, you have to send them away from me." Hu Shouxin said with interest, "It seems that you have a strong psychological shadow over the woman who pestered you. You haven't told me what happened later." Sun Lang sighed. That was the opportunity for him to reunite with Hu Shouxin after 2 years, because he accidentally met a very difficult woman. That woman, after discovering my ability, pestered me all day, wanted me to have sex with her. For this, she paid me, begged me, peeped at me, drugged me. In the end, I was really annoyed to the extreme, so Shouxin's eyes widened. "You kept her hard?" "Of course not," Sun Lang denied loudly. "I just tied her up, threw her into the bathtub, and then the big bald man's eyes showed signs of bloodshot. Then, I seriously gave her a facial massage for an hour. That's it." Hu Shouxin widened his eyes with a "You're king kidding me" look. Then, Sun Lang stared at the ceiling. His voice was filled with the vicissitudes of life, and he sounded like an invincible swordsman who was as lonely as snow. There was a hint of sadness in his voice as he said, "She was so moved that she cried." Chapter 8. They chatted for a while and talked about the famous detective Zhang Yinluo who had blocked the door. Hu Shouxin frowned and said, "I'm not afraid of her, but she's troublesome. She's the apple of the Zhang family's eye and a disciple of the Vulture Palace. She's working as a arrester in Mingzhou City. It must be her family's arrangement that she wants to pursue an official career. Now that the war is over, her military achievements won't be easy to achieve. She has the support of her family in the Vulture Palace, so she should have a bright future. You don't know, but the Imperial Court has been very lively in the past 2 years. We, the Tianyuan martial artists who rose to power with military achievements, are part of it, and so are those women. Well, you don't have to tell me this. I'm not interested." Sun Lang immediately waved his hand and said, "That detective seems to be stubborn. Although she was driven away by you this time, she won't give up easily. You better solve it for me. If she pesters me too much and accidentally gets my hands wet, she'll make a fuss and say that I've ruined her reputation and drag her family into this. If a fight breaks out," he sighed and said, "I can't stop now. She'll die. Killing people is boring. I'm tired of it." Well, it's not difficult." Hu Shouxin nodded. But that girl came to you because of the female thief Chinyu. I'm afraid that the reason why she was kidnapped is not simple. She must have been rescued by her accomplices. Sun Lang snorted. It has nothing to do with me. Tell her to stop talking. He took out the token of emission from last night and threw it on Hu Shoshin's desk. I don't want to go to the government office to get the reward. Give me the money first and get someone to get it. Hu Shoshin seemed to have expected him to say that. He took out a small bag of silver from the desk drawer and threw it to Sun Lang. The ranger counted it carefully, ignoring the rolling eyes of the man. Hu Shoshin thought of something and asked, "Are you good with guns and weapons?" "It's quite interesting." Sun Lang took out the Baifeng shotgun from his sleeve and took a few shots. "Don't you think it's cool?" Relying on the propelling force of gunpowder and bursting flames to launch the projectile, the force is limited and the trajectory is straight. It is impossible to be as flexible as it wants to be, and the power is not too great. A mediocre person can't beat an expert with it, and an expert can't deal with an expert that he couldn't beat before. He can only use it to bully people weaker than him. As a martial arts expert of the Hutu kingdom, Hu Shoshin naturally scoffed at these strange techniques, which was also the general understanding of the martial arts world of the country. He shook his head and said, "Moreover, to integrate these weapons into the combat style, it takes a lot of hard practice and deduction. It's really too useless. But it's perfect for you to use." He thought of the past and said with a smile, "You were very interested in these things back then." Sun Lang laughed as well. "Arrogant and narrow-minded. Believe it or not, sooner or later, the Empire's army will be lined up and executed by those foreign devils. It's useless for you to say these words to me." Hu Shoshin revealed a sly smile. "My lord, since you are so considerate of the world, why don't you go to the capital and explain it to the officials?" Sun Lang gave him the middle finger and said, "It's none of my business. I'm leaving." "Wait a minute." Hu Shoshin pulled open the drawer of the table and took out a red wooden box. "Wei Gong has been sending some trinkets over for the past 2 years. He recently asked Long Wanda to send this over. I'm not interested in these things, so I found it at home last night. I'll give it to you." Sun Lang took it and opened the box. A short gun with flowing flames lay quietly in the box. The metal of the intertwined gold and fire outlined the roaring head of a Kirin beast. The cold light of the gun barrel extended from the mouth, making the gun look ferocious and domineering. Because of its very special appearance, he recognized this famous gun at a glance, which was said to be the embodiment of the dreams of 30 million brainless young people in the Empire. He softly said its name, "Big Gun Fire Kirin." Hu Shoshin smiled and nodded. Then Sun Lang suddenly asked, "Is it an emasculated version that can only be used for 7 days? How is that possible?" Hu Shoshin puffed out a smoke ring and said disdainfully, "This is the work of the best refiner in the world. How is it an emasculated version to fool those hotheads? You were missing for 2 years, so you don't know that Wei Gong was very lucky. After he returned to the imperial court, he was taken in by Zhenrenma, the king of writing, who is said to be able to copy all the weapons and methods in the world. With this great fortune and the help of his family, the Wei family from River East, he has been promoted rapidly in the imperial court. He is now the assistant minister of the Ministry of Works. Now, when people of both the good and the bad see him, they all salute him and call him Assistant Minister Wei Gong. This thing should be made by his master." At this moment, Sun Lang was carefully observing every corner of the Fire Kirin, trying to find the logo of rapid cultivation. No money to repair your mother, but there was none. Hu Shoshin was somewhat speechless. What the hell? How can there be such a thing? Speaking of which, it was you who spread the rumor back then, wasn't it? You spread the rumor everywhere, saying things like, "Think about it. Can you become stronger if you don't pay?" And then a bunch of busybodies made it known to everyone in the Divine Land. Aren't you afraid that Master Ma will come to your door and beat you up? Recalling the old story, Sun Lang's eyes revealed some nostalgia. Then he chuckled. Because the sense of déjà vu was too strong, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. Looking at the Fire Kirin in Sun Lang's hand, Hu Shoshin's eyes flashed with a trace of wavering and sighing. "So, Even Jinren Ma began to study the things of the foreigners. I remember that firearms were developed in the early years of the empire. Unfortunately, they are not as strong as bows and crossbows. They cost a lot of money and take a long time to reload. It is really a chicken rib of chicken ribs. 100 soldiers armed with shotguns will all be shot to death by an elite warrior armed with a big bow in the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. And by twisting and turning and blocking with a short sword, the warrior can even be unharmed. So, it has been kicked out of the Empire's armed forces long ago. Sun Lang pretended not to hear it. The fire Kirin hovered a few times in his hand. The comfortable feeling and the roaring fire soul in the barrel made him show a satisfied expression. Good stuff. Before, I was always thinking about how to make people suffer under the premise of not killing them. With this gun, I can finally let go of my hands and feet. For example, the female thief yesterday, I could put her down with one shot. You big stick who? Why didn't you tell me earlier that you have such a good thing? Your expression of wanting to go out and show off after getting a new toy is really easy to understand. Hu Shoshin sighed and said, "You'd better keep a low profile. Although few people can recognize you now, there are still opportunities for your whereabouts to be leaked. Now, not only a group of old brothers are looking for you, but also some guys with bad intentions are looking for you. Although I am a rough man, I can still receive letters from Lin Dingwan every month to tell me about the changes in the imperial court. Now all parties are checking and balancing, but they all have their own ideas and are ready to make trouble. If someone in the imperial court finds that you are not dead, the situation will immediately become a mess. After all, I don't need to say more about your significance to the Huda kingdom." Sun Lang's smile slowly disappeared, and his eyes became cold. "What? Do you still want me to go back to be a puppet?" "Don't say it so harshly, but it is the truth," Hu Shoshin said slowly. "When the time comes, the Emperor will send an edict to invite you back to the capital. Will you go?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "What do you think?" The bearded man said with a wry smile, "You will be punished if you resist the edict. Then I have to let His Majesty know that today I am no longer a clay puppet that some people can manipulate casually." Sun Lang sneered slightly. "I heard that at this time, the imperial court is full of mud and sand, and people are overstaffed. His Majesty only cares about sending people to punish people. I want to do a good thing and help the government to streamline the staff and save some salary for the country. Didn't you say that you don't want to kill people? They took the initiative to come and provoke me. But that's another story." Sun Lang put the fire Kylan back into the wooden box and said slowly, "Old Hu, I have already said that I am even with this country, but it doesn't mean that I have forgotten all the things in the past. I will remember your kindness to me, and I will never forget what they did to me. The reason why I didn't kill their entire families was that I didn't want to lower myself to the level of idiots. There are gains and losses in what happened in the past. Although I have suffered so much, I have gained a lot. I can't tell whether I am more grateful or more resentful. Well, this is actually a lie." Sun Lang closed the wooden box and smiled faintly. "I just think that after killing their entire families, I don't know how many more people I have to kill before I can be at ease. This world is like a big net. Pull one part and the whole body will be affected. Hatred will always be endless. Humans are always reckless. There are too many idiots in this world. And it took me 6 years to get out of this cage. Do I have to fight for another 6 years just for a few idiots and go back to my old life? Now, I just want to enjoy an ordinary and interesting life. I want to walk around this land and F*CKU. 8 years ago, when I first came here, I was forced to fight a war for 6 years." He tucked the box under his arm and prepared to leave. "So, Old Hu, if you don't want this country to be filled with blood, you'd better keep the promise between us. Don't tell anyone about me. Otherwise, it'll be hard for us to be friends." Hu Shoshin was speechless. This was probably the harshest thing Sun Lang had said since they met. He couldn't help but think of the day when he reunited with Sun Lang. In Sun Lang's eyes, there was joy and happiness of reuniting after a long time. But there was also a faint examination and vigilance. What happened in the final battle 2 years ago that caused him to be on guard against his closest comrade? Perhaps he would never know the answer. But since the moment they met again, he had made up his mind and would not change it. 8 years ago, maybe it was cowardice, or maybe it was cold-bloodedness, or maybe it was helplessness. No matter what, we sat back and watched that thing happen, causing you to be involved in this war. In the end, we let you down. Hushoshin looked at the other's back. It is right and proper to pay back what you owe. This is what the whole country owes you. If you want to collect this debt one day, don't forget our old brothers from back then. We can accompany you in killing people. Sun Lang's back paused for a second. He raised his hand and waved, smiling. With your little ability, you should go back home and practice more. I haven't seen you for 2 years, and your martial arts are still too weak. Hushoshin was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head and smiled. There was a trace of helplessness in his smile. You little bastard. Chapter 9. Hushoshin, a former general of Tianyuan, a war hero. He was one of the first high-ranking generals to retire after the war and return to his hometown with honor. He was known in the army as a fierce general who broke through enemy lines. He was born with great strength, and his bravery was unstoppable. In Ming Province, there are no more than 3 people who can say that they can definitely defeat him. Liang Bufan, the chief of detectives of the 6th Fan School in Ming Province, looked at the angry girl before him with a headache. She was from a noble family and a proud disciple of the spiritual Vulture Palace. He could not beat her, curse her, or put on airs. He could only try to persuade her. Such a thorn cannot be suppressed by power or strength. Even if you take out the Jinghong sword and ask for help from your family, there is nothing you can do about him. Zhang Yinluo said angrily. Even if he is a war hero, even if he is awesome, can he cover for a suspect? Don't underestimate him, my lady. Liang Bufan sighed. He is more than a war hero. As an unparalleled general who made great contributions to the Heaven's Origin Sector twice, killed generals and captured flags 3 times, and fought alone 16 times, even if he retired, he was still treated with the highest honor by the court for the veterans of the Heaven's Origin Sector. His contributions were carved on the Yanran stone, and his name was listed in the Soaring Clouds Pavilion. More importantly, even though his name was removed from the active army, and the 12 military policies were canceled, he was still allowed to command the Imperial Army, which means that the royal family and the court trusted and appreciated him. Such an honor is partly because of his great contributions and partly because he has someone above him. The thunder bow of the Imperial Army that can break the enemy's formation can summon the thunder from the sky and shake the army. Your family must have heard the story of Hushoshin and his bow. They will not allow you to do anything reckless. Liang Fifan tapped the table and said slowly, right now, undercurrents are surging in the Imperial Court. Some of the war heroes who were knighted because of their military exploits in the Heaven's Origin War are either standing in the Imperial Court or returning to their hometowns. With their military exploits, their fame, and their power, they have established their own forces in the martial arts world and the Imperial Court. They have formed their own factions and impede each other's political opponents. Hushoshin is one of them. Therefore, he is not wrong. Even if Goddess Wu of the Spiritual Vulture Palace stands up for you, she will be pushed back because his backer is even tougher than yours. My lord, Zhang Yinluo finally couldn't stand it anymore. She interrupted Liang Bufan with a bit of uncontrollable anger in her voice. What I want to know is not his background, and I don't care about Hushoshin's background. The most important thing is that a criminal who has been arrested by us was taken away on the way back to 6th Fan School. Shouldn't we investigate to the end? That Xinyu is just a thief. It's not worth it to mobilize so many people. What's the use of blowing this matter up, other than showing the incompetence of the 6th Fan School? Liang Bufan frowned. Furthermore, you also said that this matter involved the Ranger Union. That suspect is someone that Hushoshin wants to protect. If you insist on going your own way, it's easy to make the Rangers and the authorities go against each other. There will be endless troubles in the future. It would be fine if it was someone else, but as I said just now, that whose Shoshin is really difficult to deal with. So, it doesn't matter even if 6 doors intercepts the murderer. Is it okay for something like this to happen under your rule? That's just a thief, being forced by his subordinate. Even if the other party had a great background, Liang Buffon's face couldn't help but darken. Constable Zhang, you're still too young. Things in this world are difficult to achieve. We can only do this with a clear conscience. You also know how many old cases have accumulated in 6-fan school. There are several unsolved murder cases, and wanted criminals who have committed serious crimes are still at large. There are plenty of places for people to use in the city's public security and the people's lives. Are you going to throw those people who need justice and help aside and take a large number of precious manpower to find a thief who isn't a good person to begin with? And you even have to take the risk of offending the Rangers? Zhang Yinluo stared blankly for a moment, then said seriously, "Then leave this matter to this subordinate." Liang Buffon took a deep breath, and an angry expression appeared on his face. "Don't you understand what I said? Your family won't approve of this matter. Besides, why do you have to get involved in this mess? That woman is a thief. In this line of work, if she's caught red-handed, she'll be beaten to death on the spot by the victim's family. Even if she's captured and tortured to death, it's her own choice. Why do you have to stand up for her?" "Because I'm also a woman," Zhang Yinluo said loudly. "In this world, if even women turn a blind eye to the danger and suffering that other women encounter, then what right do we have to ask men to respect us? Do you still expect men to be merciful and stand up for her? Even if she's a thief, she should be punished fairly according to the law. She shouldn't be kidnapped for no reason, and her body, soul, and dignity should be cruelly hurt and bullied, and even die a tragic death quietly. What I want is nothing more than fairness. Even if she's a thief, only the law can decide her life and death. Others, whether it's the Ranger Guild or other ghosts, have no right to hurt her." "What are you talking about?" Liang Buffon laughed bitterly. "Maybe it was her accomplice who rescued her." "That's unlikely. Stealing is one thing, but attacking the constables and violently escaping after being captured is another thing. She's a thief, not a robber. After being captured, she should be thinking about how to defend herself and get out of prison as soon as possible. Why would she do something so blatantly against the government? The cost of the 2 crimes is too different. The current dynasty is in ancient times, and corporal punishment for theft has long been abolished." Zhang Yinluo gritted his teeth and said, "I lost the suspect. Whether it's for public or private reasons, I have to get to the bottom of this matter. If the suspect, Qin Yu, really fled, then I have to arrest her and bring her to justice." "Then you can go, Miss Zhang." Since they had already reached this point, Liang Buffon's tone also became cold. "But you have to know that the reason why I allowed you to do this, and the reason why I'm patiently arguing with you here, is because you're the pearl of the Zhang family and the proud disciple of the Vulture Spirit Palace. All of this seems to be contrary to the fairness you're pursuing. I'll say something unpleasant. If you don't have any background and are just a hothead with no backing and stubbornly come to me to argue, then I'll have to teach you a lesson about the difference between superior and inferior. Thank you for your help, Your Excellency." Zhang Yinluo's expression was calm. He cupped his hands and bowed. His voice was cold. "I'm no longer a naive and childish little girl. I understand how the world is like. I also know a little about the transactions and stories hidden under the yamen. I also understand the principle that there are no fish when the water is too clear. It's just that we, the children of aristocratic families who represent the greatest unfairness in the world, are born to enjoy extravagant clothing and food. We have resources and power that ordinary people can't reach in their lifetime. If even people like us take all of this for granted, bullying the weak and spreading injustice with a clear conscience, then this world is really hopeless. I won't pretentiously think that my family background and birth are burdens, and I don't want to give up all of this. But since I have many benefits that ordinary people can't reach, then I have to try my best to make this world a little more fair. If we, who have unfairly occupied a lot of resources and benefits since birth, don't do anything, in the long run, there won't be any fairness to speak of in this country. You must know what will happen at that time. Looking at Zhang Yinluo's back as he turned and left, Liang Bufan snorted. He picked up the teacup and slowly took a sip. Then he frowned slightly. This Westerner added milk and sugar when drinking tea. He really wasn't used to drinking it. But after tasting it carefully, there was a different taste. Recalling the strange taste in his mouth, he slowly revealed a trace of a cold smile. I heard that this young lady had even gone abroad to study. Humph, she really has a set of principles. What a pity, what a pity. Chapter 10. Zhang Yinluo left the noisy six-fan school with a murderous look on her face. The constables all knew the background of this young lady and also knew that she had suffered a big setback last night, so they all lowered their heads and reduced their presence to avoid bumping into the old lady's spearhead. The female constable looked at these good-for-nothings and recalled Liang Bufan's seemingly righteous but actually cowardly appearance. She snorted heavily. This matter must be dealt with to the end. Liang Bufan would not provide any help, so six-fan school could not be counted on. In this case, she could only rely on her own strength. She could not rely too much on the help from her family. Liang Bufan was right. Hu Shouxin was not to be trifled with. She could not make a big deal out of it. Otherwise, the matter would be out of control, and she would also implicate her family. Moreover, if the matter was too serious, it would alert the enemy. If the other party became desperate and decided to kill the female thief, then everything would be meaningless. Master had said that bad people were very cunning, so good people had to be more cunning than bad people. Therefore, she had to learn to use her brain and think of a way. This matter could only be solved by using her brain. She frowned and thought carefully. Suddenly, a light flashed across her mind. Zhang Yinluo suddenly raised her head. I got it. A moment later, a fast horse rushed out of the backyard of six-fan school and galloped towards the ranger's headquarters, Zhongyi Building. Goddess Constable, you're here again. Hu Shouxin received a report that the big-breasted Goddess Constable, who had come to make trouble, had come again. She kept saying that she wanted to find Hu Huaishou to issue a mission. After sending away the lewd and mischievous person who came to report the news, Big Beard sent someone to invite her to the study. You're late. My nephew has already left. It's okay. Zhang Yinluo said directly. I'll visit him personally later. Constable Zhang. Hu Shouxin's face darkened. When I speak, 1 is 1, and 2 is 2. Although my nephew is a little lively and active, he would never do such a lewd and obscene thing. He has been by my side since he was 14 years old. I watched him grow up, and he wouldn't even go to a brothel when I brought him there. This child's natural disposition is simple and honest. He is loyal and pure, and he is even more restrained and respectful towards women. Not to mention abducting a young lady. Even if he accidentally touched a woman's body, he would run away as if he had touched a hot iron. If you still think that he is a rapist, then please go ahead. Feel free to use whatever means you have. I who will take them all. There is nothing to discuss. He narrowed his eyes and coldly said, Stop pestering me. Do you believe that I can write a letter, and you will obediently go home and reflect on your mistakes for 3 months? Zhang Yinluo quietly clenched his fists and slowly said, Constable Hu, you've misunderstood this junior. This junior came here this time to entrust a ranger of your department to help me complete a task. Hu Shouxin frowned and stared at Zhang Yinluo for a moment. He suddenly sneered. If he is the criminal who abducted Qinyu, you can follow him all day long and keep him under surveillance. This can make him too busy to care about anything else and also make him hesitate to take action. If he has a guilty conscience, he will sooner or later reveal a flaw. Then you will find the opportunity to rescue Qinyu and bring him to justice, right? You will use yourself as bait and follow him around. If he goes berserk or attacks you maliciously, he will inevitably incur the wrath of the Zhang family. When that time comes, he will not be able to escape, right? If he's not a criminal, he'll do his best to help you clear your name. I'm his uncle, so I won't just stand by and watch. That way, you'll have a great chance of getting help from the rangers of Mingzhou City. Little girl, you've really put in a lot of effort. He knocked on the table and frowned. You have put in so much effort and even used yourself as bait. Just for a thief? Zhang Yinluo's expression changed slightly when her thoughts and plans were seen through. After all, she was a little girl and still lacked experience. But since it had come to this, she raised her head and stubbornly said, "This has nothing to do with you. If the Sixth Fan School thinks that the life of this female thief is insignificant and does not want to be involved, then I could do it myself. If you Rangers think that the life of a female thief is insignificant, then I can treat this as a business and hire you. I don't expect you to agree with my ideas, nor do I think that you have an obligation to do anything. Everyone chooses their own path, and one can only be responsible for himself." She stared at Hu Shouxin and slowly said, "And I am just putting my own beliefs into practice. I want to arrest this thief and bring her to justice. If she is alive, I want to see her body. And I want to bring the thief who obstructed the law enforcement of the Sixth Fan School and kidnapped the criminal to justice. As for you Rangers, since I can't reach a consensus with you on the level of morality, I will move you on the level of interests." Hu Shouxin looked at the girl in front of him and sighed. Someone once said, to seek justice in a feudal dynasty with an incomplete legal system, there must be something wrong with such a person's head. Zhang Yinluo could hear the heavy mockery in those words. He immediately retorted, "I also deeply understand it. However, the biggest difference between me and the brother who said those words is that when he realized that the legal system of this dynasty is not perfect, he only sat to the side and ridiculed those who try to change the current situation. But when I realized that the current situation is not perfect, I worked hard to change it. He can laugh at me, but I can also look down on him." Hu Shouxin stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. He pointed at Zhang Yinluo and nodded. "Interesting. Little girl, although you take things for granted a little too much and are a little naive and childish, although your current beliefs are only built on the imagination and hot-bloodedness of a young person and have not experienced the tempering of reality, you are still young and have too little experience. I cannot ask too much of you. Right now, you're at least much better than those idiotic scum who think they're better than others and treat mortals as pigs and dogs. Moreover, it's much easier for a naive and childish fake good person to become a strong and persistent good person than for an evil person to turn over a new leaf and turn over a new leaf." Zhang Yinluo was a little confused. This is just a little life experience. Forget it if you don't understand. After all, it is not that easy to change a person. Hu Shouxin slowly revealed a slightly malicious smile. In someone's words, "You're too young and you need to learn more. You need to improve your posture. Don't worry, leave it to me. How can I just stand by and watch a little girl who is not bad in nature and adheres to the right path need guidance and help? Little girl, I admire you, so I'm willing to help you. You're in luck. Not only does my nephew have the ability to help you find Qinyu, he can also give you the correct life guidance and education, allowing you to re-establish the correct three views through practice." Seeing that Zhang Yinluo did not believe him, Hu Shouxin's expression became serious. "Little girl, I'm not joking at all. If there is anyone in Mingzhou City who can find Qin Yu's trace under such circumstances, it must be my nephew. I can guarantee that. Don't underestimate him." Seeing that Zhang Yinluo was stunned, Hu Shouxin showed a troubled expression. "It's just that the crux of the problem is that my nephew's temper is a bit weird, and money can't move him," the female arrestor said decisively. "Over the years, I have accumulated a lot of rewards for my sect and my family. If he can only help, I will definitely give him a satisfactory reward." A satisfactory reward. Hu Shouxin looked at Zhang Yinluo's delicate face and exquisite figure, revealing an inexplicably cold smile. He just stared at Zhang Yinluo and did not laugh until the girl felt goosebumps all over her body. The bearded man looked very happy and even gloating. After laughing for a long time, he still could not close his mouth. With a smile, he said, Okay, I promise you. However, that guy is a prick with a hard mouth but a soft heart. You have to find a way to shut him up and give him a way out. Only then will he accompany you to do it unwillingly. Well, let me be the bad guy. Your plan is a bit rough. Let me help you improve it. After a long secret discussion, Zhang Yinluo left in a hurry. Hu Shouxin stopped smiling and slowly leaned back. Staring at the ceiling, he was lost in thought. The past years, the fleeting time, the changing images, the 6 years of bloody battle, and the 2 years of reunion. That person, in fact, had never changed. Now, I can still feel those things in the depths of your heart. Hu Shouxin murmured. We couldn't resolve it after 6 years. Now it seems that we have to continue. I hope this innocent girl can change something. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. We could try one by one. There will always be a way. No matter what, we always hope that you can live well. Chapter 11. Sun Lang, who had already left Zhongyi Tower, had no idea that a big conspiracy was quietly falling on his head. At this moment, he did not go home. Instead, he took a long detour and ran to a medium-sized temple in the city. Big monk, it's time to give out money. In a small meditation room, Sun Lang and a monk sat opposite each other. The monk's hair and beard were all white, and his face was kind. He sat cross-legged with his palms clasped together, looking like an enlightened monk. It was a sharp contrast to Sun Lang, who sat opposite him with no proper posture. Sun Lang swung the money pouch that he had taken from Hu Shouxin in his hand and twirled it a few times. He opened the pouch and poured out half of the money. The silver precious metal fell on the small table and made a crackling sound. The monk's expression did not change. This time, it's the street on the north road of Xianglan Fong. There's a Qin pawn shop there. Sun Lang took back the money pouch and reached out to press down on a piece of broken silver. He pushed it in front of the monk. There's a family, surnamed Zheng, with 2 children. The man's name is Zheng San. His mother is sick. There's a medicine monk in the temple who can help treat her. This is the medical fee. There should be about 2 silver coins left over for the old woman to buy some tonics. Then he pushed out a second piece of silver. There's also a family surnamed Su. Their parents are separated, and only 3 children depend on each other. The older one works as a porter in the grain store during the day to support his younger brother who practices boxing in the martial arts school. There's also a younger sister who secretly goes outside the city to pick some flowers and fruits and peddles them on the street. Recently, the street is not safe. It's not good for a young girl to wander outside alone. I see that there are many monks in your temple. Each person has a set of monk's robes. It's enough for the young girl to be busy for a while and practice her craft. So buy some cloth and let her sew some monk's robes. This silver is her reward. After that, he pushed out a few more pieces of silver. Money for the cloth. Also, make 4 children's clothes, 5 ready-made short shirts, and 3 women's clothes. Give them to... Piece after piece of silver was pushed out. Every piece of silver had its uses, no matter how big or small. Finally, he pushed a larger piece of silver to the monk. The last 5 taels is for your hard work. You've helped me a few times, so consider it your reward. The temple's expenses are not small. Occasionally, we will give you porridge as a supplement. You're not allowed to take a single cent more or a single cent less. Ba, I thank you on behalf of these poor people. The monk opened his eyes and smiled. He put his palms together and bowed his head. I'm ashamed. As a disciple of Buddhism, I'm not as knowledgeable as you about the hardships of the people. The rich can gamble, whore, and watch performances. Their nightlife is very rich, but the poor don't have so much entertainment. Their biggest entertainment is to sit in the streets and talk about family matters after eating. They're very gossipy, especially those old men who don't need to work anymore. They know a lot of things. Sun Lang smiled. When you have nothing to do, you will naturally know some things by listening to their nonsense. Ba, you are a merciful person, the old monk said sincerely. This good deed of merit is due to your merciful heart. Disciples of my generation don't dare to take advantage of it. Please leave your name. Then I wouldn't have come looking for you. Sun Lang smiled. What's the use of this little bit of fame for me? Moreover, if I personally give them money, they will naturally treat me like a living Buddha. However, the next time they have a problem, they will most likely come to me. It's fine if it's 1 or 2 people, But if 100 or so people come, I will be tired. I don't live to help others. How can I stand people who come to me every day crying for money? Moreover, people are deceitful. If my reputation as a great philanthropist is spread, those who need help will certainly come to me. What if those idle people come to me to cheat me? I'm not someone who is easy to fool. Moreover, I have a bad temper. If I meet those kinds of people, I will most likely kill them on the spot. You see, this will definitely cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, I'll leave these troublesome matters to you all. You have a good reputation, and this temple has a good reputation as well. I've investigated it in private, and it's indeed quite good. The Imperial Court has nursing homes, the Leaky Pond Garden, the Compassionate Youth Bureau, and the common folk also have benevolent societies. They can provide for widows and widows, but it's hard to keep the hearts of people. Things in the world can't go according to one's wishes. There will always be oversights. There will always be people who need help but can't get it. I won't be staying in this city for long. These good deeds are just done on a whim. Perhaps one day I will get tired of them and stop doing them. Only religious people, like you, can persevere in doing these things. I hope you don't spend all day chanting scriptures and meditating. Walk around more and help the people who are suffering. These good men and women have endless incense all day long and are worshipped in all 4 seasons. Don't just write empty promises and use the incense money to build the golden body of the Buddha statue. Don't talk about reincarnation and peace in the next life. Why don't you do more practical things now? The old monk was speechless, but he also felt that there was something wrong. Therefore, he could only offer a one-size-fits-all reply. Amit Ba. Sun Lang saw that his expression was a little constipated, so he pointed at the old monk and laughed. You bald donkey, have you been chanting too much? What I think is not important. What kind of person I am is also not important. What's important is that the money has a better use. The people who need help get help. What the F***ck are you still dissatisfied with? The old monk was stunned at first. Then he smiled calmly. It's the bald donkey's fault. Sir, you are a free man. Although I don't know how much of this old monk's words are true and how much of it is flattery, but as expected, I still feel pretty good. Sun Lang, who was being politely sent off by the reception monk, was in a very good mood as he left the temple. He felt very happy doing some good deeds, and he also felt very happy being flattered. These 2 pleasures brought him even more joy. Moreover, he could go to those families in a few days to take a look. Seeing that their originally sad and gloomy expressions had an additional touch of light and hope, he would feel even more joy. And the greatest joy was to discover that unexpectedly the monks in this temple did not distribute the donation according to his intention, but instead embezzled and embezzled. In that case, on a dark and windy night, he could replace Shakyamuni to give this bold, bald thief a righteous heavenly punishment, to let him die with despair and remorse, so that there would be one less scum in the world. Doing this kind of thing was indeed very pleasant. Amit Ba, I always feel that I've been a little psychopathic recently. I'm really ashamed, really ashamed. Sun Lang pretended to sigh. Alas, it's not my fault. If a person is lonely for a long time, there will inevitably be psychological problems. It seems that I need a long-term toy. I mean a companion. But rough men are an eyesore, and women are too troublesome. It'll be good to have a peerless cross-dresser. He had only taken a few steps when he came face to face with a carriage escorted by a group of horses. The reception monk, who was respectfully watching Sun Lang leave, changed his expression and turned to run into the temple. Sun Lang smiled slightly and walked a few steps to the side to make way. The knights also slowed down. As the horses passed by Sun Lang, several vigilant and cold eyes were cast on him. The paladin shook his head and walked straight forward, shaking his head and saying, "Which rich dog came here to offer incense and pay money to buy peace of mind?" He did not deliberately lower his voice and just sighed casually, but it was heard by a few knights at the end of the group. Someone seemed to want to show off in front of his master. His expression changed. He reined in his horse, stretched out his whip, and pointed at Sun Lang, shouting, "You over there, what did you say?" Sun Lang turned his head and smiled gently. "I said, which rich dog came here to offer incense and pay money to buy peace of mind. What? You over there, do you have a problem? His expression was neither timid nor arrogant. He just calmly repeated what he had just said. This kind of calm attitude was even more unpredictable than arrogance. But for these knights who were used to being high and mighty, not showing any fear, scruples, or flinching was the biggest provocation to them. The knight who asked the question turned his horse's head and wanted to come forward to teach Sun Lang a lesson. The paladin stopped in place and tilted his head with interest, with an expression that said, "What are you looking at?" In the eyes of the knights who reined in their horses and turned back, he was simply a mantis trying to stop a chariot. No one knew that in the heart of this calm paladin, there was a strong desire to show off. A business has come to me. Chapter 12. Perhaps this group of knights had checked the almanac before they went out today, and the heavens finally took pity on them. Before something happened, the people in the carriage had already noticed the commotion. A slender hand opened the window of the carriage, and the captain of the guards, who was following on horseback, approached knowingly. He tilted his head and listened for a moment, then stopped the knights who were about to court death. He whipped his horse over and asked directly, "What's going on?" This group of people was really obedient. Lord Death Courting, who was striding into the abyss of death, immediately stopped. He glared fiercely at Sun Lang, and then angrily reported to his captain. The captain heard the gist of the matter. He first looked at Sun Lang with dissatisfaction, then looked at his subordinates with an expression that said, "Are you King crazy?" But since the young mistress had asked, the matter had already come to this, and it was not something that he, as the captain of the guards, could decide. So he looked at Sun Lang again, and then ordered his men, "Keep an eye on him. I'll report to the young mistress and let her decide what to do." A few knights, who were all riding tall horses, surrounded him with malicious intentions. They only needed to let their mounts take a few more steps to surround this arrogant ranger. At that time, 3 or 4 huge horse heads would nudge him, and they would see how this kid would deal with it. Sun Lang casually glanced at them from the corner of his eyes. Wherever his gaze landed, these well-trained horses immediately neighed uneasily and began to circle in place. No matter how the knights shouted, the psychic horses refused to take another step forward. Before these knights could connect the abnormality of their mounts with this little ranger in front of them, a beautiful figure walked out of the carriage. Her figure was tall and slender, and she was dressed in tight clothing. Her hair was as black as ink, and her appearance was beautiful. Her eyes were slender and delicate, and she gave off an astute and capable feeling. After this woman walked out of the carriage, she directly stood at the front of the carriage. She placed her hand on the edge of the carriage and looked back. Her sharp gaze swept over Sun Lang's body, and her eyebrows slightly raised. Then she jumped off the carriage and walked over. Seeing her get down from the carriage, the knights immediately dismounted and stood up. Looking at this valiant woman, besides respect, there was also a trace of infatuation and admiration in their eyes. The knights surrounding Sun Lang hurriedly pulled their horses away. At the same time, they didn't forget to give Sun Lang a threatening look that said, "Be careful when you speak. What enmity do you have with my family?" The woman walked over and cupped her hands in salute like a man. Her words and actions were natural and unrestrained. "Why are you speaking ill of me?" "Speak ill of me?" Sun Lang raised his chin and said with a smile, "This precious horse, fragrant carriage, accompanied by bodyguards, you mustered a large force. Your prestige is illustrious. It's not too much to call you a dog tycoon, right?" This guard was angered by the unintentional words of a passerby and even threatened to use force to threaten him. With such a guard, it wouldn't be too much to call him a dog. We are all humans. You were born to live a life of luxury. You went to the temple to light incense and were surrounded by attendants. But I have to run for my life and walk with my 2 legs. It wouldn't be too much to call you a dog tycoon, right? You have countless lackeys working for you. But I was frightened by your lackeys because of casual remark. Reincarnation is a matter of fate. You have countless benefits, but I have to rely on my own 2 hands to make a living. The world is so unfair. It wouldn't be too much to call you a dog tycoon, right? Moreover, this mouth is on my body. I didn't scold you behind your back. I just casually said a few words in front of you. I didn't avoid it and didn't avoid it. What did I do to you?" The woman was stunned for a moment and then smiled. "Your Excellency, you misunderstood me. I'm just a steward of the mansion. But what you said is quite wrong. My master has been loyal for generations. He guarded the land for the country and dismounted to plead for the people. During the Tianyuan War, there were heroes who went to war and died on the battlefield. He doesn't dare to call himself a dog tycoon, but he has done things like building bridges, paving roads, and opening warehouses to provide relief. Your Excellency can't distinguish right from wrong and call him a dog tycoon, right?" This female steward spoke very skillfully. Not only did she vaguely point out the identity of the master of the house, but she also attacked Sun Lang from a moral point of view. Hearing her words, the knights all showed a proud expression. They looked at Sun Lang with arrogance and mockery in their eyes. This kid doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. "What a joke," Sun Lang sneered. "The Tianyuan War lasted for dozens of years. So many heroes died on the battlefield. Is your family the only one who died? Your family worked hard for the country and was fed by the government. Look at you. Did the country mistreat you? If your family members died for the country and were fed by the government, how could the imperial court not give compensation and rewards to your descendants? Since the country did not mistreat you, then don't boast about it, and don't think of yourself as so great. In that war, the ones who died were not only the brave and loyal officials of noble families like you, but even more of those nameless soldiers who were led by the brave and heroic soldiers. Those nameless soldiers who died in the war also shed their last drop of blood for this country. They are forever separated from their loved ones. Fathers lose their sons, wives lose their husbands, and their families can only receive a limited amount of compensation. However, they have lost their loved ones forever, and they have to spend the rest of their lives in sadness and reminiscence. Your family feels wrong just because they were scolded, but where can those dead soldiers go to complain about their grievances? Don't forget, those soldiers died on the battlefield to protect not only their families, but also the country." And the paladin raised his head slightly and looked at the knights in front of him coldly. "And you rich people can continue to be above the ordinary people and have the precious privilege of surrounding a paladin at will. By the way, the heroes who died in your family died for this great purpose after all." The female steward's expression changed, but the knights were even angrier. As the saying went, if the Lord was insulted, the servants would die. Their anger was instantly blazing. Perhaps the paladin's mockery and sneer poked at something deep in their hearts that they had never dared to face. The knights roared in unison and drew their swords. The bright blades reflected the sunlight, and the murderous aura dissipated. It seemed that they were about to make the paladin who offended their family bleed. "A bunch of damn bastards. You don't know your surname after taking off your armor." Sun Lang held the wooden box under his ribs in his hand and reached out to press the buckle. "Today I got a new toy. I don't need to play with you empty-handed, so you're lucky." Seeing that the conflict was about to erupt, a large number of footsteps came from the temple. It turned out that the monks had discovered the conflict here and had gone to report it to the abbot. A few old monks led a group of senior monks and hurriedly rushed out. "Everyone stop." At the same time, a soft but firm shout came from the direction of the carriage. The female steward and the knights, who looked angry, turned around as if they had been electrocuted, and then quickly retreated, surrounded the carriage, and stared at Sun Lang. The female steward nimbly jumped on the carriage and held the girl who came out of the carriage. "Miss, let me handle this. What should we do?" "Beat this big brother half to death, then pay for some medicine, send some gifts to the Rangers Guild, and talk about the situation?" The girl shook her head. "He just said a few words, and you want to beat him or even kill him? It's too exaggerated and overbearing to be punished because of words. Besides, he didn't say anything wrong." She held the female steward's hand and carefully jumped off the carriage. She took a few steps forward, looked at Sun Lang, and curtsied. The girl's face was covered with a veil, but the autumn water flowing eyes could arouse endless reverie of men. The water-pink dress wrapped the beautiful figure like a budding flower, just like a rose. The girl said in a soft and ethereal voice, "What Your Excellency said, this little girl also deeply agrees with you. It's just that this world is unfair, and even a girl like me can't change it. So I can only devoutly offer incense, chant scriptures every day, pray for all the heroes who died on the battlefield, and donate more clothes, food, and medicine to the poor. Today, my family offended you. Please forgive them. They're not bad people. It's just that this little girl has been alone since childhood and rarely spends time with my family. In their eyes, I'm like a little sister. My little sister has been wronged, so my brothers naturally won't stand by and do nothing. I hope you can understand. I will restrain them more in the future." She spoke softly and softly. She didn't use her power to bully others. Instead, she lowered her posture. After the knights heard this, their breathing quickened and their expressions became agitated. They couldn't wait to die here for the young lady. The way they looked at Sun Lang also became more and more unfriendly. "You bastard! You have the heart to call such a good young lady a dog?" A group of idiots, after receiving her brother's card, they were actually so excited. Sun Lang looked at this beautiful girl who looked weak and pitiful. He seemed to have noticed something and frowned slightly. In addition, the monks in the temple had already come out. Today, he could no longer pretend. Since that was the case, there was no need to stay here. He nodded casually. "If there's nothing else, then I'll take my leave. Take care." The young lady nodded reservedly, and then turned to leave with the help of the female steward. She did not return to the carriage, but went straight to the eminent monks who were walking out of the temple, leaving a beautiful figure behind. She did not say any more words or stay. She got off the carriage to talk with Sun Lang, and the purpose was to resolve the conflict just now. Other than that, they would not have any more interactions in their lives, so there was no need to exchange greetings. The knights also led their horses and followed her. Before they left, they did not forget to glare at Sun Lang. The knight who was looking for trouble at the beginning felt that he had lost face. He pointed his horsewhip at Sun Lang and said in a low voice, "Boy, today is your lucky day. Don't let me see you in the future." Sun Lang smiled without the slightest care, clasping his hands together. Well said, well said. Brother, I have the intention of leaving you an address, but this is a little unfair to you. So let's leave this matter to fate. Next time, if we're fated to meet again, brother running dog, if your mouth is full of shit again, then you can only blame your bad luck. Lunatic. The knight listened to Sun Lang's nonsense and snorted. After all, he was worried about his master's order, so he did not dare to act recklessly. He could only remember Sun Lang's appearance, and thought that he would definitely teach this boy a lesson in the future. Good, this was not fishing to show off. If he came looking for him in the future, he would just be sending himself to the door. Chapter 13. In the temple, the young lady who came to worship Buddha first offered incense, and then worshipped Buddha. As usual, after donating some money for incense and oil, she was invited into the meditation room by the old monk. There was a small pile of silver scattered on the table. When the young lady saw it, she was surprised at first. Then, she squinted her eyes and smiled. Her bright eyes curved into crescent moons. "Master, were you counting your private belongings just now? You must be joking." The old monk sat down with a smile. With a natural expression, he reached out and put the silver aside. A monk has clothes to cover his body and food to fill his stomach. Other than that, he has no other desires. What's the use of his private belongings? These silver taels were left by the lay Buddhist just now. Before I finished counting them and gave instructions on how to deal with them, I heard a conflict outside the temple. I left in a hurry and didn't put them away. I made you laugh. The young lady and the housekeeper looked at each other. She covered her mouth and laughed. It's that mighty, unyielding, generous, and righteous paladin. Why? Does he also want to spend money to offer incense and buy peace? The old monk had already understood the cause and effect of this matter. He shook his head and said, "You're wrong. That lay Buddhist is a real free person. Why would one buy peace? I've been in charge of this temple for many years. I don't dare to say that I have sharp eyes, but I've seen many people. It's really the first time I've seen someone like that lay Buddhist. He had a very good impression of Sun Lang. When he heard that there was a conflict outside the temple, he hurriedly rushed out, wanting to mediate the situation. Although there were no serious consequences, the young lady in front of him looked innocent and pure, but in reality, she was not an easy girl to get along with. Therefore, the old monk had the intention to ease the conflict. He immediately told her about how Sun Lang had given her money several times, and concluded, "If you have the intention to do good, then you will not be rewarded. If you have no intention to do evil, then you will not be punished." Although this statement is biased, but that layman is truly selfless in doing good. He does not ask for gratitude, does not ask for repayment, does not ask for peace of mind, does not ask for karma. So free and easy, this old monk is also very envious. He chanted Amit Ba a few times in his heart and praised Sun Lang again, try to change the bad impression of him of this young lady in front of him. Looking at the surprised expressions on the faces of the two female benefactors, the painstakingly master quietly breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. There should be no problem then. It was not in vain for the monk to specially set up this trap to speak for the lay practitioner. The young lady talked with the master about Buddhism and discussed the difficulties they had encountered. Finally, she was satisfied and left. After getting on the carriage, the young lady sat on the soft cushion and leaned her back against the wall of the carriage. She stretched and looked at the housekeeper who sat down carefully opposite her. She smiled and said, "Sister, I didn't expect that bold paladin who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth to be such a free and easy, kind and righteous person. Is this the legendary fate?" The housekeeper hesitated and said, "Young lady, this, yes, just like in the story." The girl stretched out her slender fingers and shook them coquettishly. She looked like a little girl who was imagining a beautiful love. At the beginning, it was a misunderstanding and conflict. Both of them left a bad impression on each other. But later, the girl found that the man was not only not bad, but also a good person. She misunderstood him. She felt guilty and wanted to apologize, but she didn't know how to say it. She could only pay attention to him silently. But they always had a chance to meet. At the beginning, they were at daggers drawn, but later, they slowly eased up and finally. So embarrassing. Holding her cheeks, the girl curled up her body and smiled innocently. This kind of trick has been told in the storybooks for hundreds of years. There are actually fools who believe it. Hearing this, the housekeeper's face suddenly changed. "Young lady, you mean all of this was deliberately arranged by that person?" "It's very possible. It's not that I think I'm infallible. It's just that everything is too coincidental. And that paladin's behavior is too strange. I can't help but think of the worst." The girl pursed her lips and smiled. "Let's start with the conflict outside the temple. When ordinary people see us, it's not a big deal to scold us. But when a knight scolded him, he was not afraid at all. He even provoked us back. After that, you got off the carriage and said those words. First, you pointed out our origins, and then you attacked him on a moral level. Any paladin with a little common sense would realize that he had offended whose carriage he had offended. Under such circumstances, he actually didn't know what was good for him and retreated. Instead, he ridiculed us even more. This is simply too contrary to common sense." The young lady sighed quietly. "There is no lack of generous and upright people in the world. I have never doubted that. But he is a paladin. Paladins are particular about being able to bend and stand tall. Any paladin knows the consequences of offending us. Just because of a moment of impulse, it really doesn't make sense. In that situation, you gave him a way out, but he didn't give you any face at all. Don't you think it's strange? If he was a young paladin, it would be fine. But he looked like a veteran. If he had always been like this, how could he have lived until now?" The housekeeper was a little puzzled. "You mean he deliberately provoked us? But in that case, if a knight couldn't hold back, he would have been killed on the spot. Maybe he has some skills and thinks he can protect himself. Besides, we don't want to offend paladins." At most, we will suffer a little. This is a trick of self-injury. You see, according to the story, the guards hurt him. After I find out that he is actually a good person, the guilt in my heart will multiply several times and I will care more about him. He won't lose anything at all, the young lady said with a smile. And he's also a smart person. He chose the place outside the temple and left a good impression with the abbot in advance. When the abbot finds out that there's a conflict outside the temple, he will definitely run to rescue the situation at the first opportunity, so he won't suffer too much. Was the abbot bought over by him? No, the master is an otherworldly expert. How could he do such a thing? But in this world, there are too many things that could deceive your eyes. The girl sighed, and a trace of sadness and tiredness appeared in her bright eyes, as if she had thought of some bad memories. But she quickly collected her mood, blinked her eyes slyly, and laughed. So at first, I planned to let this bad-mouthed guy suffer a little. But when I found that the abbot was about to arrive, I came out in advance and asked everyone to stop. That guy's plan fell through, so he must be very depressed. But I came out in advance, which was a pleasant surprise. This guy must be thinking about how to show himself in a conversation with me and leave a deeper impression on me. But I didn't let him do as he wished. After apologizing, I ignored him. The housekeeper had long been used to her young lady's quirkiness, so she just smiled bitterly. She had more important things to do at the moment. After listening to her young lady's analysis, that ranger was indeed a little malicious. Thinking of this, the housekeeper's eyes showed a trace of murderous intent. Then what is his purpose? There are two possibilities. Although I'm a little self-righteous, I'm still a little confident in myself. For a girl as beautiful as a flower, weak and lonely as I am, it's not strange for someone to set their eyes on my body and family property. Elder sister, over the years, we've also met many people with bad intentions. It's just that the method this time is a little unique. The girl said with a smile, and then her expression became a little gloomy. She sighed softly. Sometimes, I feel that I have been quite a failure in my life. I always speculate about others with malicious intentions, and I am always guarded. But there is really no other way. There is no man in the family. Since young, those who try to get close to and curry favor with me all have ulterior motives. If it were not for you protecting me, I would have become someone's plaything. Seeing how pitiful she was, the housekeeper's heart ached. She reached out and put her hand on the girl's shoulder. The girl leaned on her full and soft chest and rubbed against it comfortably. She smiled and said, "Sister, actually I was deliberately acting pitiful just now to trick you into hugging me. You're not even willing to hug me now." When the housekeeper heard this, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She subconsciously wanted to raise her head and knock the head of the girl in her arms, but she realized that this action was not appropriate. However, the girl took the initiative to grab her hand and put on her head. She looked up at her and revealed a charming smile. She sighed and gently stroked the girl's head in her arms. The eldest miss narrowed her eyes like a cat. The housekeeper asked softly, "What about the second possibility?" "The second possibility?" The girl in her arms stiffened slightly and said softly, "Speaking of which, the second possibility is more likely. He is a paladin, and paladins are a group of people who like to meddle in other people's business. If this coincidental meeting is not a coincidence, then it can be explained. He has already found clues about that matter, so he set up this trap to create an opportunity to quickly get to know me, and then find a way to find out the truth. Anyway, my trip to this temple is not a secret, and it is easy for people with good intentions to figure out the pattern and make plans. If this is true, then this person must be a very scary person." The housekeeper's face became extremely ugly. After a moment, she tightened her arms and hugged the girl in her arms. She said in a low voice, "I will protect you. I believe you." "Sister, you're the only person I believe in." The eldest miss whispered, "I'm doing something bad, right now?" The housekeeper said softly, "In my eyes, everything you do is right." The eldest miss did not speak anymore. The two hugged quietly, and the two souls warmed each other, just like these years. They had lived like this. Perhaps feeling that the atmosphere was a little dull, The eldest miss broke the silence and said softly, "Sister, do you know there's a third possibility?" "What possibility?" The girl chuckled and said, "That is, this warm-hearted and kind-hearted ranger who is not afraid of power is actually an unparalleled expert whose strength is enough to suppress the world. That's why he treats all creatures as dogs, does not fear the powerful, and does not bully the weak. He treats everyone as equals because your identity, power, and strength are not worth mentioning in front of his sword. If that's the case, his contradictory and strange behavior can be fully explained, can't it? He could defeat all of us by himself. Naturally, there is no need to consider anything else." The housekeeper was stunned for a moment, and then carefully thought about this possibility. But when she looked down and saw the smile on her sister's face, she realized that she was joking. She could not help but shake her head. Miss Sun Lang's figure appeared in her mind. She suddenly felt that even if he had made arrangements beforehand, this person was still too calm at that time. But this possibility was too absurd. She drove this strange thought out of her mind. Looking at the young miss who was giggling, she said in a bad mood, "If what you said is true, and he's a peerless expert and wants to investigate this matter, I want to see how you will stop him." "Sister, your brain is damaged." The girl pursed her lips and smiled. "If there is such a kind, upright, good-looking, and young peerless master, why should I resist him? I will do everything I can to make him my husband. I don't need to scheme with others all day long like now. I will just stay at home and be his wife. He will take care of everything." Her words were a little bold. The housekeeper's face turned slightly red. She reached out to wipe the young miss's face. "You are so shameless. Sister, why are you blushing? If I really want to find a husband, you have to be my concubine. Ahaha, don't scratch here. Sister, please forgive me. I am wrong. Let's not talk about the spring scenery in the carriage for now." The center of the two girls' discussion was a strangely handsome man who regarded beauty as dirt. At this moment, he was looking at the female constable who was standing in front of his house not far away with a dumbfounded expression. Intuition told him that he seemed to have been cheated. Chapter 14. Zhang Yinluo, who had been waiting for some time, finally found the person she was looking for. Her eyes flashed, but she finally remembered Hu Shouxin's request. Although she still had some doubts, Hu Shouxin, as a hero of Tianyuan and the head of the local ranger association, was so confident that she could not help but have some confidence in the ranger in front of her. Maybe he really was not a suspect and could really bring the real murderer to justice. Thinking of this, she stopped and took a few gentle breaths to calm herself down. Then she raised her head and tried to show a sincere and friendly smile to ease the misunderstanding and hostility not long ago. Then she found that Roland stopped and said with a subtle expression, "What's wrong with your ah-hey face?" Zhang Yinluo blinked and asked, "What's ah-hey face?" "Ah-hey. It's a beautiful girl named Ah-hey who got happiness after happiness when she was doing something very happy. These happiness overlapped and gave her more happiness, giving her a dreamlike time. In this extreme happiness, she could not help but show an extraordinary and emotional smile. That smile was so contagious that everyone who saw this smile would feel her happiness." Sun Lang talked nonsense seriously. In order to protect this smile forever, the descendants wanted to remember this smile forever. So they called Ah-hei's expression Ah-hei's face. He looked at Zhang Yinluo in front of him and said sincerely, "It's quite similar to your expression now." Zhang Yinluo felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. However, he said that Ah-hei was a beautiful girl. Her expression when she was happy must also be very beautiful. So was he praising him? She hesitated for a moment. "Thank you. You're welcome. I'm just telling the truth." Sun Lang modestly waved his hand. "After all, I'm an honest man who dares to tell the truth." Listening to him bragging, Zhang Yinluo showed a smile. Obviously, the female arrestor was in a good mood. After all, she was also a woman. If a woman was praised as beautiful, She would be very happy even if she did not say it out loud. So now it seemed that this ranger was not as bad as she thought. Maybe he was really not a suspect. In this case, she had to apologize after the truth was revealed based on this idea. She intended to be more sincere, so she stood still and said solemnly, "Your Excellency, I'm here to ask you for a favor." "May I ask you?" "Sorry, I'm busy." Sun Lang patted the wooden box in his hand. "My friend gave me a good toy. I'm going back to practice with guns." I knew it wouldn't be that simple. But I have to be sincere, and have a good attitude. Zhang Yinluo reminded herself and smiled kindly. "I can wait for you to finish." "That's not very good," Sun Lang said shyly. "I'm a very introverted and shy person. Maybe I'll be nervous. If I know that you're waiting outside, I may not be able to shoot." Obviously, as a local woman, Zhang Yinluo did not have such advanced knowledge. She could not understand what Sun Lang was talking about. She thought that he was deliberately evasive. Her expression became a little subtle, and her smile was a little bit angry. She squinted her eyes and said, "It's okay. Do you want me to shoot for you?" "Hiss!" Sun Lang gasped. Why did the plot suddenly develop in this direction? I'm not that kind of person. I always feel that you're making fun of me in a very vulgar way. Good. I'm just lamenting the lack and backwardness of sex education in this country. Sun Lang waved his hand. Long story short, you came alone. I don't think you're here to arrest me, and you're showing such an evil, happy smile. It's obvious that you want to flatter me. You must have something to ask of me. Combined with what happened this morning, you want me to help? But you don't know anything about me. How can you be sure that I can help? And last night and this morning's meeting were not friendly. How can you persuade me to help? But you still came, which means that you have something to rely on. It also means that someone told you about me, which strengthened your confidence. The ranger looked up to the sky and sighed. Stick who, F***CK, your mother. Hu Huaisho only agreed to this because I begged him again and again and even forced him willfully. Furthermore, I can feel that Hu Huaisho agreed to this for your own good. His words revealed his concern and protection for you. Even an outsider like me can see it. Don't blame him. Zhang Yinluo heard this and hurriedly explained, maybe I've wronged you today. But as a matter of fact, you made Qin you like this last night, and she was taken away in the blink of an eye. That kind of situation is indeed suspicious. As the last person who had contact with Qin Yu, I listed you as one of the suspects. It's a normal way of judging a case. If I were to do it again, I would definitely make the same judgment again. If you want to blame me, just blame me. But Hu Huaisho must have done it for your own good. He wanted you to agree to this because he wanted you to clear your suspicion. Sun Lang waved his hand. Well, there's no need to explain. My friendship with Hu Shoshin is much stronger than you think. Why would I be dissatisfied over such a small matter? Zhang Yinluo was stunned. Friendship? Didn't he say that you were his nephew? The female arrestor blinked her eyes. Friendship? How strong? Sun Lang thought for a moment. Probably to the extent that if Hu Shoshin was killed, I would bring the murderer's family, neighbors, 8 generations of ancestors, and even all the people related to him to his side, and cut them all into pieces. I would destroy everything he cherished and then watch the murderer die of heartache in wailing and despair. The female arrestor was startled at first. Then she shook her head and smiled. Your friendship is really good, and you really know how to joke. The paladin did not comment. He paced to the door and looked at it. Then he turned back and said, although there is a lock on the door, it is better to guard against a gentleman than a villain. Since you still suspect me, and you know where my house is, why don't you just break in and search for a dark basement and a beautiful dog-eared girl with a dog leash around her neck? Previously, it was my right to ask you to go back to 6 Fan School to cooperate with the investigation. But if you want to search a house, you need an official warrant. Moreover, with the guarantee of Hu Shoshin, your suspicion is further reduced. Moreover, you are very likely to become my helper and reinforcement. So, why should I do such an unwise thing and push you into a hostile position? And if you're the criminal, then I will find evidence of your crime openly. Why do you have to be so sneaky? Zhang Yinluo puffed out his chest proudly. Besides, although I'm not a gentleman, I am not a villain. This is your house. Without your permission, how can I break in and search wantonly? You're wrong. You're wrong. You're just a fledgling. You don't know the methods of the officials. Being steady, accurate, and ruthless is the key to being an official. If you're so rigid and inflexible, you'll suffer. Sun Lang smiled and said, to some extent, the principles of jianghu and officialdom are the same. The one who strikes first gains the upper hand. If there is anything, you can talk about it after lying down. When you encounter this kind of situation, you should use a thunderous method. Who cares about the orders and rules? Sometimes, if you miss a good opportunity, more people will be killed. You should be decisive and decisive. You can just apply for an arrest warrant after the event. This is still considered as following the rules and having a conscience. When you encounter those who have no conscience, you have to create evidence, even if there is no evidence. After all, the purpose of solving a case is to get promoted and get rich. As long as the criminal confesses, the case will be closed. Your thinking is very extreme. You said that you have to strike first to gain the upper hand. Just like this time, if I strike first and gain the upper hand by breaking into your house, looking for evidence, or even creating evidence, I can pin you as a criminal and put you in prison. If you are innocent, wouldn't I have wronged you? Solving a case to save people and upholding justice is one thing, but you can't wrong a good person because of this. Otherwise, it will be worse than not being able to catch the criminal. Zhang Yinluo retorted indignantly. You really have the standard way of thinking of a ranger. Lawless. I've heard of some rangers who do things without any taboos. They would often rummage through other people's houses and mess around. What do you know? Ransacking people's houses to look for weapons, equipment, and pills is the feeling of an RPG game. Also, I said that I will be steady and accurate. What's so steady about catching the wrong person? It only shows that you are incompetent. After Sun Lang unlocked the door, he pushed it open and turned to look at Zhang Yinluo. Although your actions and thoughts are a bit pedantic, fortune favors fools. Miss Arrester, as the owner of this house, I invite you in. Fortune favors fools? Zhang Yinluo protested loudly as he followed in. What do you mean? What I mean is, Sun Lang put his hand behind his back, raised his head slightly, and began to show off. He said indifferently, I believe that there is nothing in the world that cannot be done as long as you can bear the corresponding consequences. But the greater the power, the responsibility. Bah, screw the responsibility. What I mean is that the greater the power, the more you have to learn to restrain yourself and draw a bottom line for yourself. Otherwise, sooner or later, you will become arrogant and think that you are omnipotent. You will think that all living things are useless, and you will become a cold-blooded, crazy idiot with crazy thoughts. The bottom line I draw for myself is to leave some leeway when speaking and doing things to give the other party a chance to live. So I didn't succeed in showing off today, but I don't feel too disappointed. They were lucky enough to come across the leeway I left for them and grasped a chance to live. Sun Lang raised his hand and casually pointed to several places in the courtyard and the house. When I had nothing to do, I set up a few traps and hidden weapons in several key places here, but I also left some leeway. I set up warning signs and images in the positions of the traps and hidden weapons, and used a very sincere attitude to persuade the intruders not to seek their own deaths. My tone was very sincere. I did everything I could. In case someone with bad intentions climbed over the wall and thought that he was strong enough to take away something that didn't belong to him, or do something that didn't respect the privacy of citizens, if he succeeded, he would be considered capable. But if he died because of it, he can't blame me. He asked for it. Zhang Yinluo was a little surprised. Then, that's why I said, fortune favors fools. Sun Lang smiled. You're quite lucky, Goddess Arrester. Chapter 15. Zhang Yinluo stepped into the courtyard and looked around. Her eyes lit up. She came from a family of scholars and studied in the Vulture Spirit Palace. She could see that the courtyard was arranged according to the 8 trigrams array. This place must be in accordance with the principles of the 5 elements and 8 trigrams. There must be a very powerful method to prevent intruders with bad intentions from coming out. For a moment, she thought more highly of Sun Lang. But the 8 trigrams array has the 8 gates of rest, life, injury, death, shock. Zhang Yinluo looked at a corner. Why does the gate of rest correspond to the toilet? In theory, this should be the gate of death, because the traditional way to break the 8 trigrams array is to enter from the gate of life, kill your way out from the gate of rest, and then enter from the gate of opening. Sun Lang smiled meaningfully. So, I specially prepared a little surprise for the legendary smart kid who is good at studying the 5 elements and 8 trigrams array and likes to use his brain. Zhang Yinluo seemed to have thought of something. Looking at Sun Lang's smile, she shivered slightly. Don't worry, I'm not interested in shit and urine. I'm just setting a trap. Sun Lang waved his hand. Only perverts like to play with shit. He ignored Zhang Yinluo's subtle look and pushed open the door of the main room. He first put down the box in his hand, then took out all kinds of weapons hidden in his sleeves and casually threw them away. A moment later, he sighed in the room. Oh, today was very casual. I thought that after what happened last night, there would be stupid thieves who don't know what's good for them coming here for a dare. What happened last night, and so on, reminded Zhang Yinluo of the purpose of his visit. The female detective did not have time to look at the layout and details of the room and quickly walked in. There's no time to lose. Get ready and we'll set off. What? Sun Lang turned around inexplicably, his face full of confusion. Where are we going? Zhang Yinluo's heart suddenly had a bad feeling, but he immediately replied, Of course it's to search for Qinyu, who went missing last night. If she was kidnapped by bad people, then he would rescue her and send the bad people who kidnapped her to prison, then send her to prison as well. If she was rescued by her accomplice, then send her and her accomplice to prison. Wait, so, no matter what, we have to send this female thief back to prison? Sun Lang pretended to be frightened. Are you a psychopath? Even if that female thief is imprisoned by you, her organization will definitely think of a way to get her out in a few days. What's the difference between that and the current situation? Do you really need a few more days? Moreover, these 2 possibilities had the same ending. No matter what, someone else will be thrown into prison. Regardless of whether it was the person who kidnapped her or the person who saved her, they would all be thrown into prison. Was there any meaning to it? Do you have any strange hobbies? For example, do you carry out dark training on the prisoners in the dark prison? Are you going to play a dungeon siege? Zhang Yinluo almost fainted from his messy words, but after a while, he finally reacted. Wait, that's not the problem. I don't have any strange hobbies. If the reason why you're chasing this group of thieves is not because of your own strange hobbies, then what is it? Sun Lang picked his nose. Don't tell me that it's for justice. Zhang Yinluo puffed out his chest and said proudly, So what? Don't puff out your chest. I know you have big breasts, so I'll let you speak. Sun Lang looked at Zhang Yinluo with a very subtle gaze. But to seek justice in this stupid country where the legal system is incomplete and full of feudalism, backwardness, transactions, and tricks is your brain crushed by your chest. So this is what you said. So what? The ranger shrugged. That female thief is not a good person. Even if she's caught by you, after a while, her accomplices will definitely find a way to get her out. At that time, she will still be eating and drinking well outside. When she is in the mood, she will sneak out and pick locks and continue to do her job. What's the use of catching her? Why waste your time? Why don't you just leave her alone? Anyway, these famous and capable thieves have high standards and will only pick on the rich. Those rich people who exploit the people and occupy the fertile land are also not good people. Why don't you let them fight each other? It'll be a good thing to do. As a civil servant who was paid by the government, Zhang Yinluo naturally scoffed at Sun Lang's twisted logic and chaotic ideas that despised order. However, she finally knew that it was only a waste of time to debate the meaning of morality and the legal system with this erratic ranger in front of her. So, she had to persuade him with both reason and emotion. I've thought about it before. You also said that if she is caught, She will be rescued by her accomplices in a few days. So why wait a few days? Why bother to have a conflict with the constables? So, I think it's more likely that Chinya's been caught by someone with ulterior motives. Maybe she will be treated crudely and hurt. Isn't that better? Sun Lang sneered. The government agencies, which are supposed to maintain social order and punish thieves severely by law, took into account the social stability, the small amount of money, and the filial piety sent in by people outside, and in the spirit of humanitarianism, they forgave these thieves who refused to repent despite repeated admonitions and let them return to society, hoping that they could live a good life. Meanwhile, those with lust and evil thoughts did not hesitate to dirty their own penis to punish these thieves who had repeatedly escaped punishment on behalf of the officials. Even if their methods were a little rough, it was still understandable that they were having fun. What the officials didn't want to do, shouldn't the heroes who enforce justice on behalf of the heavens do it? Zhang Yinluo was almost fuming with anger. Don't you know that she may be in danger and despair now and longing for someone to save her? I know that. Sun Lang tilted his head. I also know that people are dying in this world while we are talking. Something unfair must be happening. Even in Mingzhou City, there are probably people who are moaning in pain right now. Many of them are pitiful people who didn't do anything evil but got themselves into trouble. Compared to those pitiful people who are honest and dutiful, what happened to a female thief is nothing. Since she chose this profession, she should be mentally prepared for the consequences. Since you are such a kind-hearted person, why don't you help the people who really need your help? There are too many unjust things in the world. I don't have the ability to take care of them all. I can only try my best to help everyone I see who needs my help. I can only do things one by one. But now, I think that the female thief is probably locked in a dark room, crying and struggling in a despicable and obscene smile. She must have never been so desperate for help in her life. She must be begging for justice and light in this world. If that's what she's begging for, I'm willing to extend my hand to her and pull her back to the light. I'm also willing to believe that after this incident, she will have hope and confidence in a bright life and turn over a new leaf. Zhang Yinluo said calmly, in your eyes, she may be a shameless thief who reaps what she sows. But even if she's a thief, I still want to save her. Because in my eyes, she's also someone who really needs help, whether it's in the current predicament or a real new life. Since I've encountered this situation, I must save her. I feel guilty if I don't do anything about it. Guilty? Sun Lang nodded. So, let me ask you again. Is it for justice or for your conscience? Zhang Yinluo was slightly stunned. She wanted to reveal the answer without thinking, but she immediately realized the crux of the problem. The girl bit her lips, and her face slowly turned pale. The ranger smiled. It seems that you've realized it, but don't rush to answer. Some people can't find a real answer even after spending their whole lives, let alone you now. The answer can only be found through continuous experience and pursuit. When the day comes when you can answer this question without confusion, then your actions can be crowned as justice. The female arrestor was thoughtful. She seemed to have realized the true meaning of life from his words. Looking at her, who was deep in thought, Sun Lang smiled indifferently. Damn, you actually believed it. What did you say? The voice was very low, so the female arrestor did not hear it clearly. But when she came back to her senses, Sun Lang's smile and words made Zhang Yinluo realize something. The girl's expression slowly became surprised and moved. So you said these words to remind me? I almost misunderstood you just now. So, shall we go now? Sun Lang returned a gentle smile. When Zhang Yinluo was about to return the same smile, the ranger suddenly said, Keep your words in your dreams. When did I promise you anything? Hey. The touched and happy expression on Zhang Yinluo's face immediately collapsed. The female arrestor stomped her foot and said, I've just said so much. Aren't you moved by my words? Don't you have any feelings at all? Don't you have any sympathy or compassion at all? At least you agree with my thoughts. You should at least say something. Sun Lang said with a straight face. Thoughts? I do. What thoughts? The ranger first glanced at Zhang Yinluo's arrestor uniform, then looked at the girl's attractive breasts. He thought about what she had just said and nodded. My thoughts are female police officer. No, female arrestor. If you're living in the book The Ice Mountain Demon, you'd probably be dead by now. Chapter 16. What I'm thinking is female police officer. No, female constable. If you were living in the book Ice Mountain Magic Romance, you'd probably be dead by now. Although she didn't understand what the man in front of her was talking about, Zhang Yinluo still sensed the obscene malice in his words with her woman's keen sixth sense. Her intuition told her that it was better not to delve too deeply into these inexplicable words. Although they had only known each other for a very short period of time, Zhang Yinluo still instinctively grasped the key to the conversation with Sun Lang. When talking to this guy, she must firmly remember the core of the topic and her own intentions. Otherwise, he would definitely lead the conversation all the way to the ditch. So she said directly, "That's why I said it. What do I have to do to make you agree to help me?" "How would I know?" Sun Lang shrugged. "Alas, how stupid are you? Since ancient times, goddesses have been fishing for rich men, the gods have been playing with reincarnation, Cupid has been drawing lots of wine, and the Virgin Mary has been looking for cannon fodder. These human traffickers only have a few tricks up their sleeves. You can't threaten me with your strength, you can't trick me with your tricks, you can't move me with your morals, you can't brainwash me with your words, you can't attract me with your beliefs, and you can't tempt me with your body. Do you feel quite distressed? Alas, you are a group of idiots, racking your brains and racking your brains, but you have forgotten the most efficient way." A ray of light flashed across Zhang Yinluo's mind. She said thoughtfully, "I can persuade you with benefits." Silly girl, you finally understand." Sun Lang's expression was like a child who could finally be taught. "Girl, your IQ is not high enough. I've been guiding you for so long, and you finally understand the key to the problem." He said slowly, "This is the second thing I want you to understand. At any time, don't impose your own will and ideas on others. Everyone needs to be responsible for their own actions, and can only be responsible for their own actions. There are some things that you may do without regrets, but you can't force others to have the same ideas as you, and force them to fight for your ideals and beliefs. Some people long for world peace, justice, and harmony, but some people only want a peaceful life, a happy family, and happiness. Perhaps the latter will join the former's team one day in order to protect the happiness that he cherishes. However, this is his own choice. The former can never force the latter to do something that he doesn't like to do with his own ideals, forcing him to give up his own happiness, abandon his own world, and fight for others for things and ideals that have nothing to do with him." Sun Lang looked at Zhang Yinluo and said calmly, "I think this is the most despicable, abominable, and damnable behavior in the world. I hate it, and hate it. You'd better not become such a person." His tone was flat, and his eyes were calm. But when Zhang Yinluo heard these words, she felt an inexplicable chill, so much so that she didn't want to know the consequences of becoming such a person. She didn't want to know at all. "But I won't become such a person." Zhang Yinluo snorted, "I'll do my own thing. I never cause trouble for others." Sun Lang squinted at her. "Then what are you doing now?" The female arrestor was a little embarrassed. Okay, really. You put on a kind face at the beginning to reason with me, making me forget my original plan. My original plan was to hire you. Aren't you a paladin? I'll pay you to help me solve this matter. In this way, not only can you clear your name, but you can also get a good commission." She looked at Sun Lang and said seriously, "So, name a price. I still have some money." "What do I need money for?" Sun Lang curled his lips, looking like he didn't care about money at all. Then he said in front of the police from the National Violence Agency, "If I'm short of money, I'll steal, rob, cheat, or gamble myself. There are many ways to make money these days. I don't need your help." Zhang Yinluo said coldly, "Then I'll ask you to let me know in advance when you're ready to make some money." "Oh," Sun Lang was surprised. "You going to turn over a new leaf?" "Turn over a new leaf, your head. What kind of new leaf are you?" Zhang Yinluo complained loudly. She felt that someone's complaining skills had improved by leaps and bounds in this short period of time. She looked at the paladin, her eyes full of scrutiny and suspicion. I always feel that you must have a lot of criminal records. Sun Lang said seriously, Nonsense, I've never had that kind of thing. I don't believe it. You don't believe it. Sun Lang said proudly. How can those crooked people of the Sixth Fan School be able to track me down? Since the police can't find evidence and can't catch me, how can it be a crime? How can it be a record? I think what you're saying is already on the verge of committing a crime. Sun Lang dug his nose. If you have the ability, then come and arrest me. However, you claim to be a partner of justice and want to uphold the justice of the judiciary and the justice of the world. Do you really want to arrest someone without evidence? Zhang Yinluo gritted her teeth and said, I hope you're just joking. I hope I don't get something on you in the future. Something on me? Why do you want something on me? Do you want to use it to fill in your loophole? Sun Lang took 2 steps back in horror. You're so vicious. Zhang Yinluo was stunned for a moment. Then her cheeks instantly turned red. Shameless. Dirty. You're even thinking about this kind of thing. Also, can you stop spouting nonsense? Why did you change the topic again? The female arrestor felt that she was on the verge of going crazy. She pointed at Sun Lang and said loudly, If you don't want money, what do you want? What do I have to do to make you willing to help me? The paladin held his chin and looked at Zhang Yinluo meaningfully. What do you think? The female arrestor was like a frightened deer. She hugged her chest and took a few steps back. You, what do you want? I'm warning you. I'll never agree to this kind of request. Sun Lang pretended to sigh and said, Just now you said you wanted to save the female thief who was in a sea of misery. That's right, but this is saving someone. Using someone else's life as a threat, looting a burning house, and making such a despicable request. He wants to take away a girl's innocence and make her live in pain and loss for the rest of her life. The person who made such a request is as despicable as a criminal. He's definitely not trustworthy and definitely not worth cooperating with. How can I trust this guy's character? How can I believe that he will wholeheartedly help me? How can I believe that he won't betray me? Zhang Yinluo rebuked righteously. I'm going to marry someone in the future. I hate people like you the most. Sun Lang said expressionlessly, Do you feel good scolding me in the midst of chaos? Zhang Yinluo's expression froze. Then she forced a smile and said, Can you change it? I just want to say, aren't you feeling too good about yourself? Sun Lang squinted at Zhang Yinluo. What do I want to do? Come on, with your looks, what do you want me to do? Do you think you're so great with big breasts? Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? I'll endure. The corner of Zhang Yinluo's eyes twitched. Then what do you want? The so-called price, the so-called sacrifice, the so-called belief. Only things that you can't bear to part with can be called a price. Sun Lang pointed at Zhang Yinluo and said indifferently, I'm not interested in your body, but I heard that you have a Jinghong sword, right? I want it. This is the price you have to pay for my help. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.